Stop Polishing a Turd. Written by Daniel Linares. Narrated by Dallin Decker. Preface. Hey there. Maybe you found this book on a park bench. Or perhaps an old buddy handed it to you as a gift. Heck, you might have just been wandering through a bookstore and stumbled upon these pages. However it landed in your hands, I genuinely hope you find what you're seeking. But let's get real here. All of that talk about success and happiness, especially the stuff those influencers post all over social media, absolute nonsense. If you're here expecting a step-by-step manual on how to nail life, I hate to break it to you, but that ain't happening. Those precious hours you're about to invest, they might be better spent binge-watching Netflix or catching some Z's post-lunch, even chuckling at memes. If you're after a recipe or a quick fix, sorry to say, this book ain't your ticket. Stop right here if that's what you're after. Now, if you're the person who's still reading despite my earlier advice, it tells me you might struggle a bit with following instructions. So, handing you some magic answer won't suddenly sort your life out. Why? Because let's face it, the world's dumped a truckload of garbage on us. We're like a gourmet turkey on Thanksgiving, covered in layers of grease. See, it tricks us into thinking our desires and thoughts are entirely our own. It messes us up with hardships we don't even know we're carrying, clouding every decision we make. We start chasing easy solutions to complex problems, craving shortcuts and magic formulas. And instead of realizing shortcuts are a dead end, we keep digging for an easier route, believing our own fibs. The result? We're loaded with grease, junk, and compulsions, contaminating every attempt at happiness. I really like what David Goggins says about this. He likens us to that Thanksgiving turkey. Most folks might cook it without cleaning out the insides first. But here's the kicker. You end up with a beautifully roasted turkey that's untouched inside. What's the use of looking good on the outside when you're full of gunk within? The same goes for life. All the wealth, fame, work, or knowledge won't mean squat if you haven't fought your inner demons. It's about clearing out that mess within, creating a void that leaves many feeling lost and purposeless. You could be a butterball turkey, but if your insides are a wreck, you're worthless. There are tons of successful people out there wondering why they still feel hollow. They think more millions, bigger houses, or fancy cars will fill that void. Nope. All that just masks the emptiness inside. Having all that stuff doesn't define success. Sure, you might have millions in the bank, but you'd still be a pile of junk with millions. You could be famous, but you'd still be a famous mess. Beauty, intelligence, achievements, hyper-productivity, none of it matters if you're hollow inside. Reading books on efficiency, productivity, or achieving more? Pointless if you're hollow within. All this does is fancy up the pile of junk life's made you. You're just a pile of junk with a pretty bow on top. Ever heard of those famous people who took their own lives? People you envy might be drowning in drugs and addiction. How many things do you imagine would genuinely make you happy? A house, a car, fame, success? Jim Carrey said it best. I think everyone should get rich, famous, and do everything they've ever dreamed of so they can see that's not the answer. Life's heaped a pile of junk on most of us, never teaching us the right path. Sometimes we don't even realize it. We just know we're not feeling right, empty, depressed. We turn to media, social platforms, and friends, complaining about life, but that doesn't solve much. Jeff Bezos nailed it. He said, complaining is not a strategy. We have to deal with the world the way it is, not how we wish it to be. End quote. So, what's the deal? David Goggins says it plainly. Before you prepare, you must clean. This is a job you've got to tackle with some guidance perhaps, but ultimately it's you against yourself. Cleaning up? That's all on you. This book isn't a how-to guide. It's a collection of ideas that have worked for centuries. A mashup of Eastern and Western wisdom, much of which we've forgotten. Ideas on clearing out the junk within. And before you brush off these words as nonsense, ask yourself, what if it's true? What harm in trying? Remember Einstein's words, insanity is doing the same things and expecting different results. So, let's dive into the first chapters and dig deep into our mess so we can aim for that light that's at the end of the tunnel. Chapter 1, An Afternoon in the 21st Century. I love this quote. People who make a hell of themselves want to go to heaven. People who make a heaven of themselves, where do they want to go? Anonymous. Today, I woke up craving raspberry cheesecake out of nowhere. I mean, who doesn't yearn for a tangy dessert, right? It's November, freezing cold, and definitely not raspberry season. But hey, supermarkets act like it's summer. They've got raspberries stocked up as if they're going out of style. And guess what? I have zero clue how to make raspberry cheesecake. Easy fix, though. Thanks to Google, a few clicks later, the problem was solved. Apparently, the secret sauce is whipping those egg whites until they're quote-unquote stiff peaks. Easy peasy. I've got a mixer, electricity, and Wikipedia teaching me about stiff egg whites. We're living in an era where our comfort beats what 17th century kings could only dream of. Imagine a king from back then craving a passion fruit mousse. No chance. Out-of-season fruits weren't a thing, and cooking know-how was seriously lacking. But today, even a 17th century royal chef wouldn't fathom that one day we wouldn't need to craft recipes from thin air or manually beat egg whites for ages. Nope, we've got machines for that. Don't have one? Buy it. Short on cash? Easy, just pay in installments at Best Buy. And it's not just about a passion fruit mousse. This convenience spills into almost everything. But here's the kicker. Does all this luxury actually make life better? Well, I'd say no, and the World Health Organization's data agrees. Look at the U.S., hailed as the best country in the world. Yet 1 in 5 adults there grapple with depression. Their suicide rates top those of other developed nations, with over 100,000 a year. Plus, a whopping 2.5 billion, that's billion with a B, doses of antidepressants are downed annually. We're the most pampered bunch, drowning in convenience, but guess what? We're not the happiest. Instead, we're the most anxious, the most wound-up generation of them all. I won't delve into the dismal stats because we all get the gist of life's downers. My aim here, my young Padawan, is to figure out why this happens. The simple theory? External factors hold significance only when they contribute to your inner essence. Whether it's the hottest party in town that seems like the ideal place to be, it means nothing if you're not internally content. If it doesn't resonate within, it won't spark joy. Strangely, despite these external comforts, our inner happiness hasn't amplified. What resides within shapes all else, rather than the reverse. Going back to childhood. Remember being a kid? For most folks, being 5 was an era of pure joy. Picture yourself at that age romping around the park with the neighbor's kid. Mom dishes out mac and cheese for dinner. You play a bit more, then snuggle into a cozy bed, doze off, and head to school the next day to color flowers and master scissor skills. No sharp edges. You return home, get served dinner, play with toys you didn't buy, munch on supper, and doze off. Ah, blissful, huh? Now compare that carefree phase to how happy you feel today. Is today better or worse than your life at 5? Most folks will vouch that childhood was the peak. Well, assuming you had a normal childhood. Ever pondered that, in a way, you were somewhat like a little hostage? Fixed bedtime, limited food choices, being made to do stuff you weren't keen on. Heck, you didn't even pick your own pals. Yet despite all that, you felt insanely, wonderfully happy. Scene change, same character. Look at your life right now. You're the boss of your meals, sleeping however long you want, taking care of your teeth and picking your own toys. You're calling the shots today. You've got a say, free will, everything to live a life full of freedom and choice. So who should be happier? You now? Or you at 5? Some folks have what's seen as a dream life, yet they can't enjoy it. It's weird, right? Now that you can do whatever you please, even with all the things you want, it's not as joyful as being 5. Why is that, for heaven's sake? Okay, you might say, you've got problems, bills to pay, a condo meeting coming up on Wednesday, a boss who's a total idiot, and all that jazz. That's why you're not happy. But think about this. If you were in this incredible place just by yourself, every need met without a single bill, no meetings, no boss, could you swear you'd be all smiles by the end of the week? Following your train of thought, if you were away from problems and all your needs were sorted, you'd think you'd at least feel happy, right? But if even being by yourself with everything set, you're still feeling lousy, then you're giving yourself a hard time. Imagine you're the kind of person your mom would warn you about not keeping as a friend. So, if even with the knife and cheese in hand you're not feeling content, maybe what you're chasing isn't really your thing. Need or desire? Some folks claim peace is what they crave most in life. I reckon peace isn't exactly a target, but more like a fundamental state to enjoy your life. No one savors a meal, celebrates a work promotion, or even enjoys a great TV show if they're not at peace with themselves. It's not a goal. It's part of life's bare essentials, a must for living well. Ever wonder why people say peace is their life goal? Because any lacking basic need automatically gets this tag of being the ultimate life goal. Don't buy it? Well, think about a dude who hasn't slept for 2 days. His top goal is a good night's sleep, not peace. Need a root canal? You're after painkillers. Haven't eaten in 12 hours? You're craving a burger and fries. Once these basic needs are met, you'll quickly realize they're not life goals. You were just deprived of them. If right now peace tops your wish list, the real question is, why are we deprived of it? It's because we hunt for quick fix solutions. The snag isn't in having moments of peace or happiness. It's that these moments don't stick around. Part of this conundrum stems from the fact that we're intricate beings, the most complex on this planet, and since we can't sustainably fulfill our basic emotional needs, we'll always prioritize them because they're never completely satisfied. Instruction manual. Imagine having a car, but not knowing which pedal does what, clueless about the handbrake or how to switch gears. Can you really expect to drive that car smoothly? Think it'll navigate the city without a hitch? Nah, right? At best, you'd stumble a few yards in a clumsy, uneven way. The same goes for our well-being. No one teaches us, at home or in school, how to handle this top-notch machine called a human being. You didn't come with an instruction manual, and guess what? Google won't help you here. You pick up a few tricks to ease worries, sing a song, read a book, hit the gym, find solace in a bar or church. But you always end up back in that same old state of angst, because these are just temporary fixes. You haven't learned to operate your machine. It's like driving a car without knowing how it works. When you grasp this, it gets easier to find answers. Why can't we be as happy as a 5-year-old? Why are we churning out misery? Why aren't we content with modern comforts or adult life's perks? And why doesn't even a paradise untouched by everyday problems guarantee fulfillment? It all boils down to this. It's not the external stuff. It's how you've been navigating yourself. To be or not to be, that is the question. Remember a time in your life when you were genuinely happy. Maybe you aced an exam, landed a job, or welcomed a child. Now, think of another moment filled with joy and try to compare the two. Stumped? Let me help. In both those instances, you got what you wanted when you wanted it. Bingo! Happiness came knocking because things aligned with your wishes. So the magic combo of what and when seemed to spell out happiness. But hold on, don't stop there. Do you seriously expect everything to happen exactly as you want and precisely when you want it? If that were the case, where would everyone else fit in? Not even at home do things always go your way. Your kids, parents, partner, even your dog, they all want things their way too. How could everything align precisely to your liking? The deal is, you only get these happiness spurts since that formula, so to speak, isn't always met. It's like the recipe for happiness is a wish fulfilled, getting what you want when you want it. But if what you desire isn't always within reach, happiness becomes this erratic thing, almost dependent on sheer luck. 100% your way. Here's the kicker. Your biggest problem ain't what others do or don't do. It's that you're not even doing things your way. Let's break it down. If you had the choice, would you pick happy or sad? Productive or the king of procrastination? Healthy or down with the flu? Unless you're a 19th century poet romanticizing tuberculosis, I'm guessing you'd prefer happy, calm, productive, and healthy, right? But is that the reality for most folks? Doubtful. We can't even nail down the stuff that's solely up to us. And when things don't go our way, we blame the world when we're sad, demand chances when we're not successful, and expect our partners to fix things when our marriage isn't a fairy tale. But the truth is, if you're feeling this way, it's on you to fix it, not the others. If you can't even master what's in your control, how can you expect the whole world to bow to your desires? Even your own mind doesn't play by your rules, yet you expect the universe to cater to you? Wake up call! Life doesn't operate like that. I'd love to say everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns, but that's a stretch. To tackle this, we've got to dig deeper. Understand how you tick and toss out the junk cluttering your mind. So grab your shovel, let's dive in together. Chapter 2, Stop Busting Your Own Balls. We don't want only money, we want both money and happiness. We don't want only money, we want it as a whole and not as a fraction. Music, food, titas. Have you ever come across that movie, The Secret? It's all about this law of attraction theory claiming that you attract what you desire. But here's the catch. It's not just about wishing. You've got to paint a vivid mental picture. Like, if you're gunning for cash, you got to conjure up a mental image of yourself swimming in dough, and apparently the universe will make it rain money for you. Here's a clearer example. Picture a guy dreaming of a new ride. It's not enough for him to daydream about cruising in a new car. Nope, he's got to visualize every darn detail. The color, the make, the model, the engine specs, the comfy seats, and even the bells and whistles. Only then can he start picturing himself behind the wheel. So, let's say the movie's idea holds true. You've just got to visualize your desires in high def for them to materialize. But then comes the million-dollar question. Are those desires even truly yours? Spoiler. You ever watch the movie Focus? There's this scene where Will Smith's character pulls a slick move, getting B.D. Wong's character to bet on a specific player with a specific jersey number. Now, if you've seen it, you know B.D. Wong didn't just randomly choose that. It took Will and his crew's whole bag of tricks to steer the mark into picking exactly who they wanted. You might think this stuff only happens in movies or those YouTube videos with mentalists, right? You know, where the mentalist convinces someone to pick the yellow ball over the purple one or eat something they hate. Those videos make it seem like influencing people is a walk in the park. They get folks to choose what the mentalist wants, yet those folks still reckon it's all their own decision. Truth is, your desires aren't all yours. They're not some unique product of just you. They're shaped by the stuff you're surrounded with, the things you've been convinced you should want. It's like your choices come from this pool of options or what you've been told you should aim for. So here's the deal. We all got those basic needs, right? Food, shelter, safety, getting frisky and whatnot. But these needs shape up in various desires. Like one person's stomach growls and they're dreaming of a cheesy pizza, while another's thinking about a smoky barbecue. Truth is, you only desire what somehow crossed your path, tasted it, heard it's amazing, or got convinced it's top-notch. I mean, truffle oil might be a load of hooey, but it's pricey, so I bought into the idea it's gotta be good. Ever wondered why you're not waking up craving kepel, caimito, limonia, or naipa for breakfast? Simple. You probably haven't even heard of these fruits. You'd need to be a seriously curious or a cuisine buff to fancy a dish of dog stew or bat soup. It's like, I don't know any Chinese folks dreaming about chowing down on Brazilian farofa or grilled tracajá, exotic Brazilian food. Heck, even a Texan isn't daydreaming about a spoonful of cherry jam. Sure, you can mix things up and create new stuff based on what you know. That's how the Brazilian pizza alla stroganoff was born, much to the horror of Italians. But hey, jokes aside, now that we've unpicked this artificial side of desire, realizing they sprout from what you've been exposed to, let's move on to other quirks they've got. The constancy and the fleetingness. You're always after something, right? Wherever you go, that longing for something new tags along. Even not wanting anything is in itself a sort of desire. And let's face it, desire is shaped by society and culture. You want what everyone's got, what no one's got, or something someone's got. Basically, everything that's been drummed into your head that you gotta have or experience. Now here's the kicker. Desire has a massive impact on how you feel. Ever wondered what makes folks unhappy? It's that delicate balance between getting what you want and not getting it. You want that car. You snag it, happy days. You dream of a hubby like Chris Pratt, but end up with a John Smith, who's far from what you imagined. Cue sadness. Yearning for a fat bank account, but drowning in overdrafts? Yeah, that's a downer. Life feels like it's constantly missing the mark, never aligning with your expectations. Sounds like fulfillment is the key to happiness, right? Nope, not quite. Even if your hubby were Chris Pratt, which might ruin a beloved Brazilian TV family, you wouldn't magically be happy. You'd still hunt for something missing, some gap to fill to feel complete and content. Let's say you land that coveted promotion. Does it turn you into a happy camper? Nah, because it just creates space for the next desire to camp out in the waiting room. What I'm saying is, the desire cycle keeps on spinning, even after you fulfill a few of them. Take a dude who scores a killer pair of headphones. Soon enough, he's eyeing another, this time wireless ones. It's like a never-ending loop of wanting more. The Sage, Episode 1. Unfulfilled desire is the seed of frustration. From this impasse, theories begin to emerge to find a solution. Then comes the first sage to advise us, decreeing that all we need to do is abandon desire, completely abdicate it, to find that nirvana, meet Jesus, or maybe hang out with Ellen DeGeneres. But seriously, can you truly wipe out all your desires? I mean, without desire, you wouldn't even respond to my question. It's not the car itself that propels you from A to B, it's that inner drive urging you forward. With that determination, you'd trek on foot if needed. Imagine this scenario. You're starving, ready to dig into a meal, and suddenly someone starts yammering about annoying stuff that grinds your gears. Personally, I'd lose my appetite in a flash. No appetite means no desire for food, and suddenly you can't even eat. Even to take a breath, your body needs to desire oxygen. You just can't survive without desire. So sorry, Sage. Killing off desire? It's a no-go. It doesn't crack the problem. The Sage, Episode 2. By now, you realize you don't get to cherry-pick your desires. They're always there, kind of like that constant background noise. They often paint a skewed picture of happiness and, well, let's face it, living without wanting something. Impossible. The second sage has another epiphany. If I can't give up my desires, then I'll reduce them to the maximum and stop expecting anything. It's better to raise pigs than to create expectations. Are we content now? Honestly, I'm still pretty frustrated. Expecting less strips away the excitement, that daring spirit driving people to achieve greatness. When you aim for the stars and throw a rock, at least you hit the neighbor's roof. But if you're aiming for the bare minimum, that rock just plops at your feet. Humanity learned that aiming high and reaching for the stars but breaking the neighbor's roof brings colossal frustration. So, we've been lowering our ambitions and focusing on smaller challenges. Fear of this frustration turns humans into ants, tiptoeing through life. It's easy to settle for mediocrity when you're scared of failing. If you were guaranteed no suffering, would you dare to do more with your life? Be bolder, more ambitious, and fearless? I bet you would. And I also bet that the fear of suffering stings just as much as suffering itself. Let me rephrase. If you shrink your desires and lower expectations, will your suffering shrink too? Let's say you have $2 million and suddenly lose it all. You'd feel upset, furious, downright terrible. Now, imagine a man with 2 cows losing both. Do you think he feels any better than you, who lost $2 million? Even though the values of the losses aren't comparable, the suffering might just be the same. Yep, it's possible to suffer equally for a cow or $2 million. There's no correlation between the size of what's lost and the intensity of the feeling of lost. Notice, a huge chunk of suffering doesn't arise from grand catastrophes, but from little things. A hostile look on the street, a traffic jam, an unpleasant comment, or your kid's mischief. Reducing desire's size won't cut down suffering because humans can suffer for the tiniest things, infinitely small things. The Sage, Episode 3. You're well aware now you can't choose your desires. They're always there, painting a sometimes misleading picture of happiness. Living without wanting something, yeah, that's a pipe dream. Lowering expectations doesn't quite do the trick either. So what's the deal now? The third sage comes out, eager from the crowd to tell his new idea. You need to choose better what you want. They argue, if you had just rooted for the Lakers instead of the Celtics, life would be different. Or they'll say, you're fixated on getting rich, simplify your life for happiness. Or even, you're obsessed with a starting position, just be content riding the bench. Sure, maybe changing what you're after, maybe, could bring a temporary lift, but let's be real. You'll soon find yourself in a similar spot. The Lakers won't always win, and Kim Kardashian and Elon Musk aren't the only ones living large. Problems? They're part and parcel of any job, any company, any position. Hinging your happiness on choosing your desires, it's a mirage, a loop that keeps you in the cycle of chasing something new. It's like swapping the lion's mouth for the tiger's. A more polished way to put it? It's treating the symptom, not the disease. The Sage, Episode 4, the finale, Detach from Detachment. Let's dive into the final sage, who struts onto the scene as a Brazilian country singer, dropping some sage advice and launching a new trend. Don't get attached, detach yourself. Avoid emotional involvement to dodge suffering. According to him, suffering stems from loss and expectation. But hold on. When you dissect attachment, you'll realize it's woven from desire. And as we've hammered home earlier, desire, it's the lifeblood of existence. So, detachment, or indifference, won't liberate you from suffering. In fact, contrary to what the song says, detachment resembles more of a symptom of depression than a badge of happiness. Ever seen someone displaying signs of depression? They start drifting away from friends and family, disconnect from once cherished possessions, and end up utterly indifferent to everything. That kind of detachment zaps away desire and motivation, leaving a person languishing in bed without any inclination to do a darn thing. Attachments, whether to people or projects, fuel your commitment to doing things the best way possible. Involvement, attachment, and expectation, they're the fuel for excelling, nurturing, and evolving. In Italian, there's this term menefreghismo, which roughly translates to a so-whatism, a hardened apathy, a trait seen in those who couldn't care less, who think everything's just fine as it is. But guess what? These so-whatists miss out on the journey of doing better, achieving nothing of significance in this life. Understanding desire, its origins, its nature, is the first step in clearing out all that superficial nonsense you've been adorning. It's time to bid adieu to all the garbage you've been convinced will bring happiness. And no point grumbling about how humanity operates, because guess what? You don't set the rules. Learn the game and play it by the rules. There's a Chinese saying that goes, if a problem has no solution, it's already solved. If desire seems like an unsolvable problem, well, there's your solution. In the chapters ahead, we'll dig deeper into desires and such, but until then, here's my sincere wish: stop stressing yourself out unnecessarily. Chapter 3, Private Infinity. I love this quote. The content of your mind is not up to you. It is determined by your environment. Everything around you enters your mind. You have no control over what you have accumulated, and what you have accumulated in your mind goes far beyond your current level of awareness. Everything you are exposed to is absorbed by your mind. It has simply absorbed everything it has come into contact with. That's Sadhguru. Once upon a time, there was a man traveling who stumbled upon paradise by chance. In this wondrous land, there stood the famed wishing tree. Under its branches, desires instantly transformed into reality without delay. So, our weary traveler, exhausted from his journey, dozed off beneath the magical tree. As he woke, the pangs of hunger gnawed at him. "I'm famished. I could do with something to eat," he murmured. Lo and behold, a magnificent feast materialized, suspended in the air. The man, consumed by hunger, didn't ponder the origin of the food. Philosophy tends to take a back seat when hunger grips. With his appetite sated, he mused, "If only I had something to drink." In the unrestricted expanse of paradise, a bottle of exquisite wine appeared with a mere snap. Relaxing in the shade, savoring his drink, and enjoying the gentle breeze, a curious thought crossed his mind. What's happening here? Am I dreaming, or are unseen forces at play? Suddenly, fierce and grotesque spirits materialized, sending shivers down the man's spine. Fear gripped him, and the chilling thought dawned, "I'm in mortal danger now." And so it happened. The moral of this tale? Your thoughts sculpt your desires, and your desires shape your reality. You forge your own heaven or hell, your own anguish or delight. It's within you to create the life you live. infinite particular. Let's delve deeper into some concepts to further our contemplation. First and foremost, it's crucial to grasp the distinction between the physical and the non-physical. What's physical? Material things have limits. They can be measured. Take rice, for instance. It's tangible, countable, its mass measurable with a scale, its volume quantifiable with a cup. Now consider humans. Are we physical entities? We possess form and tangible dimensions and can be touched, and our weight and height are quantifiable. Even a microscopic bacterium exists physically in the material world. But here's the twist. Can you see a feeling? Does it have boundaries? No, feelings aren't physical. They're immeasurable. You can't weigh or measure love, or any emotion for that matter. You might gauge someone's actions or even compare their brain waves in your presence, but that's evaluating behaviors or brain activity, not quantifying emotions. Measuring genuine emotions? It's simply not feasible. The same applies to desire. Until it materializes, it resides in the realm of ideas, intangible. Our thoughts, they follow suit, not physical, beyond touch or measurement. Feelings, desires, thoughts, these are the foundation stones of our mind. Observe that non-physical elements lack boundaries, making the structure of our mind limitless, an inherent trait of its character. Limitedly unlimited. I need your full attention here because this is one of those mind-blowing concepts that can really shed light on your life. I mentioned earlier that you, and all humans, possess an infinite mind with boundless thoughts, desires, and feelings. On the flip side, your physical self and the world around you have limitations. You can't sprint at 100 kilometers per mile without aid, nor can you go without breathing for hours. Just like these examples, your body and this physical world have numerous constraints. Now, imagine yourself a boundless, creative, super-powered mind, navigating a world governed by rules and limitations. Picture the immense conflict and chaos when something limitless exists in a world full of boundaries. Desire? It's the expression of your limitless mind in a limited world. Your mind rejects boundaries. It's inherently boundless. So, no matter how much you materialize your thoughts, desires, or feelings into reality, your mind won't settle. Ask for $1 million and your mind won't rest. It'll immediately ponder, what if we had 2 million? Imagine those science fiction stories where an alien keeps asking for more food, growing larger, and consuming everything in sight. I'm drawing a parallel here between the unquenchable nature of the human mind and the insatiable hunger of that alien. It's a metaphor emphasizing how our desires and ambitions persistently crave more, akin to that relentless alien always seeking greater sustenance. Let's not be mistaken. While our mind isn't infinite, it has limits like memory or cognitive capacity. It remains virtually limitless in terms of desire, especially for everyday folks. Sure, there are those who swiftly achieve their aspirations or reach incredible heights, yet even those who've walked on the moon or amassed great wealth might feel a bit adrift, lacking something to strive for, and perhaps even succumbing to depression. But for most ordinary humans, desire is virtually boundless. Consciously compulsive mind. Let's revisit the happiness formula mentioned earlier in Chapter 1. Happiness supposedly occurs when the things you desire happen at the precise moment you wish for them. When something aligns perfectly with your desires and timing, it brings a fleeting moment of contentment. However, the human mind, boundless and perpetually unsatisfied, swiftly begins crafting new what and when scenarios, seeking fresh instances of fulfillment. This cycle persists throughout life, an endless pursuit for more. Recognizing this pattern sheds light on a fundamental issue with our minds, not the presence of desires, but their compulsive nature. Compulsion, by definition, is an inner compulsion that prompts an individual to perform certain actions or behave in particular ways. Compulsive acts lack consciousness. They stem from mere impulse. In essence, any behavior driven by compulsion poses problems. Consider addictions, a prime example of compulsive behavior. Despite being aware of the adverse effects, individuals may smoke compulsively, driven by overpowering desire superseding rational thought. Imagine if your body mirrored this compulsive behavior, each limb acting without restraint. You'd be in a perpetual state of chaos, colliding with everything in your path. This issue compounds when we consider that thoughts emerge arbitrarily, even when grounded in our worldly experiences. As I've mentioned earlier, you can't conjure thoughts independent of exposure. Your thoughts do not embody reality. They are just that, thoughts. Your essence isn't encapsulated in your thoughts. Rather, thoughts are a reflection of what you fed your mind. Consider this. An average person entertains about 5,000 thoughts daily, around 3 per minute. Some scientists even suggest this number can soar to 50,000 when accounting for thoughts during sleep. Reflect on how many of these thoughts revolve around unfounded fears or how frequently imagined scenarios diverge from reality. Observe the multitude of unnecessary thoughts, baseless intuitions, and self-deprecating judgments that permeate your day, thoughts that hold no truth. Upon reflection, it becomes apparent that controlling your thoughts seems elusive. If we had control, we'd solely entertain positive thoughts, devoid of tragic or distressing notions, and certainly not repeatedly demean ourselves. Truthfully, our understanding of our minds and their thought mechanisms remains limited. Perhaps this is the focal point for exploration and improvement. Exercise. Here's a little exercise. Can you predict and verbalize your very next thought aloud? Take a moment. Anticipate what you'll be thinking in 10 seconds. Were you able to conjure that thought? Of course you could. Now consider this. If we can consciously direct our thoughts, why do our minds often wander into seemingly random territories? Why do memories suddenly resurface? A daycare incident involving a taken snack or a recent traffic altercation. Some recollections arise at incredibly inappropriate moments, like remembering a joke during a somber occasion, such as Uncle Joe's funeral. But here's the real puzzler. Can you actually opt not to have certain thoughts? Mental digestion. We often fall into the illusion that we are defined by our thoughts, but the truth is that our essence transcends mere thinking. Imagine our brain functioning similarly to our stomach. Just as the stomach reacts to what we consume, eating spoiled food resulting in illness, or opting for a poor diet leading to low energy levels, our mental well-being is influenced by what we mentally digest. Choosing the right mental nutrition, so to speak, yields positive outcomes, just as consuming the wrong thoughts leads to a sort of mental diarrhea, a deluge of negative or harmful thoughts. This can lead us to misidentify with aspects not true to our genuine selves and misinterpret our true personalities. In a way, the phrase, "you are what you eat," applies here. No one becomes a broccoli or a pizza, yet your dietary habits reflect in your energy levels and physical condition. Likewise, when we say you are what you think, it's not meant literally. Instead, it implies that what you feed your mind shapes who you become. If we liken our mind to the digestive system, just as your stomach processes food, your brain processes information. Consequently, overloading your mind with information can lead to an overflow of random thoughts. Similar to how the quality of food affects the body, the quality of information influences the mind's functionality. 1 million gigabytes. Picture if our minds only fired up when we wanted them to, like our hand that moves when we need it to grab something. But nope, our minds don't play by those rules. And to top it off, we're living in the age of information overload. People say we've never been so loaded with info, and it's true. It's like being a footballer at an all-you-can-eat buffet. You want to try everything, but your stomach can't handle it all. Same with your brain and all the info you want to soak up. It's way too much. Imagine trying to keep up with everything. Who won the latest reality show? The news in your neighborhood? The cure for cancer? Your brain plate is full. And just like a stomachache after overeating, our brains get a mental overload. We're stuffed with so much info that we can't see our real selves anymore, buried under layers of thoughts and desires. It's hard to figure out who we truly are amidst this chaos. The catch is, we don't even choose most of these thoughts. They pop up based on what we've been exposed to. And it's not just the quantity, but the quality, too. Every thought triggers a desire, and every desire stems from a thought. Having big dreams or thinking about random stuff isn't the issue. It's when these thoughts take over and we can't control them. That's the problem. Being drowned in thoughts without even choosing them. It's like mental diarrhea or a compulsion, not a conscious choice. The genie in the lamp. Hear me out. Desires aren't the villains here. They're the fuel for so much in life. Picture yourself in a big football match. You need that desire, that fire to win, to push yourself beyond limits. Without it, the game would be dull. Even the most stunning passes or goals wouldn't mean a thing without the desire propelling you forward. Think about it. Why do millions worldwide pause everything to watch 22 folks chasing a ball during the World Cup? Sounds a bit strange when you think of it that way, right? But it's the intensity, the passion of the players, coaches, fans in the stands, and viewers glued to their screens that make it captivating. That shared desire creates magic, even for those who've never kicked a soccer ball. Desire isn't the issue, it's the spark that lights up life's experiences. Pocket desire. Where does the problem lie? Well, picture this. After the game ends, the player doesn't cling on to the desire to play until the next match. What happens then? They'd be kicking anything resembling a ball on the streets, not stopping even for sleep, being labeled as downright crazy. During the game, that player's desire is strong, but post-match, they tuck that desire away, moving on with life. It's not the mere existence of desire that controls them. It's the compulsiveness. So, let me reiterate, the real issue isn't desire itself, desire is life. The trouble comes from its compulsive grip. If you don't put your desire away and it dominates you compulsively, you end up acting erratically, like a person without control. Another hitch is that these desires often don't reflect your true essence. They're just products of a mind soaking in the environment's nonsense. You spend hours scrolling through the Instagram feed of rich posers and suddenly think that's what you genuinely want. You've probably experienced achieving something you thought was a big dream, only to find it utterly unfulfilling. Why? Because we tend to desire unconsciously without truly grasping what we genuinely need and desire. You just obey those compulsions like a servant without question, scrutiny, or resistance. Eventually, everything in your life becomes compulsive. The way you desire, what you desire, and the intensity of those desires. Nothing's under your control. You're simply a slave to your mind and body. It's like being forced to the bathroom every 5 minutes with relentless diarrhea. You lack control. The diarrhea of thoughts has overwhelmed you. The choice between conscious action and compulsive impulses determines whether you live in paradise or hell. Nearly all consciously made decisions bring joy and contentment, while most compulsive actions tend to lead to negativity. You might recall my earlier mention that suffering comes from desire, joy from its fulfillment, and suffering from unfulfilled desires. So, imagine playing a World Cup match, wholeheartedly engaged, dreaming of victory, yet the team loses. Isn't that the suffering of unfulfilled desire? Now, if you could choose, wouldn't you prefer to be happy rather than sad? So if you're in that World Cup match, what's the way forward? You bring out the desire for victory, play with your utmost skill, yet your team loses. In a compulsive state, that desire lingers, and you carry that bitter defeat for years. Now, consider the possibility of stowing away that desire after the match, leaving it there. Does suffering persist? Picture this. The referee blows the whistle, your team lost, but you tuck the desire away. Is there suffering after stashing the desire? I don't think so. It's that compulsiveness that robs you of control. If you could put your desires away, you wouldn't suffer. If experiencing life passionately, being involved, and then consciously shelving that desire were possible, you wouldn't end up frustrated or miserable. Instead, you'd feel enriched by each experience. But then, you might argue, that's impossible to control. It's a utopia. Understand that not believing or not being able to do something is entirely different from whether something is achievable or not. Arschloch. Imagine you're on the road and the driver of the car next to you yells, "Idiot!" You start wondering what led the guy to call you that. Now imagine you're walking and someone rushes past shouting, "Arschloch!" You may think you were mistaken for someone else, or perhaps that a passerby wished you a good morning in Swedish. But here's the twist. Arschloch means idiot in German. It's not the word itself that affects you. It's the meaning you give to it. Some might argue that words have power, that even without understanding the meaning, negative energy can hit you. However, when you assign meaning to an offense, it amplifies the impact. Conscious individuals act. Those who are not conscious react. In this scenario, much of your suffering comes from your unconscious reaction to a word. It hinges upon the meaning you associate with that word. The word itself isn't responsible for you harboring grudges for years. You bear the responsibility for acting compulsively to a single word. Are you so out of control of your life? Are you that unconscious? Your compulsion arises because you can't be fully conscious, given that most of your mind is cluttered with heaps of garbage absorbed from your cultural environment. So, seeking answers within yourself becomes challenging because what's within yourself isn't truly yours. It's buried under a mountain of accumulated garbage throughout your life. Before looking within for answers, you need to shovel through this mess. Are you still there with the shovel in your hand? In the next chapter, we'll dig even deeper, understanding more about compulsions. If you'll allow me, I'd like to end this chapter with a quote from Daniel Linares. Oh, that's me, myself. I like to say, the mind is like a child. It will pester you, telling you to buy this, that it wants that. In the end, your obligation is to say to it, "We'll buy it on the way back." Chapter 4, Time Machine. There's an anonymous quote that goes, "All human beings are incongruous, but what matters is the constancy of the essential." And Carl Jung said, "Only that which we truly are has the power to heal us." The important thing is that I'm being myself. Big Brother has had over 20 seasons, and you've probably heard this phrase a zillion times. Be authentic. Be yourself, with your good and bad qualities, without falseness, without social masks that manipulate others' perceptions of you. It seems simple, right? Just wake up and be yourself. But do you truly know who you are? Or are you so cluttered with garbage that you've lost touch with your essence? As we've delved into in earlier chapters, our thoughts and desires aren't solely ours, they're products of the environment in which we live. Many problems arise from there, while others stem from the compulsive nature of our minds. Now, let's revisit 8th grade biology. Human beings reproduce through sexual reproduction, combining the genetic material of both parents. Consequently, a significant part of our essence is predetermined by our genetic makeup, approximately 40 to 60%. Your intelligence, tendencies towards greed or laziness, introversion, and numerous other traits come as part of the basic package. But we don't exist in a vacuum. We're subject to the influences of culture, upbringing, luck, privileges, and voila, here we are, this product, you. If we closely examine ourselves, there's nothing overtly authentic about us. As mentioned earlier, even our thoughts aren't entirely our own. Every decision that seems authentic today was built upon a foundation of information we've been exposed to throughout life within this vast database that we are. Yet, amid this repository, there's a lot that's utterly false. Consider the soldier suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder who holds a broom, perceiving it as a weapon, hiding in a trench that is actually his hospital bed. Trauma can blind the soldier so intensely that reality is obscured, leading to a pitiable situation. Like the soldier, we need to heal from our lies to truly live again. There's a mountain of falsehoods we need to clean up. Some might assume only fake people suffer from this issue, those always trying to please everyone, seeking social and professional advancement through flattery or trading favors for acceptance. But truthfully, these seemingly confident individuals often aren't authentic either. They're ensnared in the same clutter. The image they portray might not align with who they genuinely are. Trauma always leaves a scar. Picture your essence as a circle, kind of like a bubble, drawn when you were still a tiny speck in your mom's belly. That bubble represents the real you, just your genes and stuff. But even inside that bubble, you're exposed to things that can shape you. For example, if your mom went through a lot of stress when she was pregnant with you, it could affect you before you were even born. So you might not be 100% you from the get-go. Now, what's a trauma? It's not all bad, you know. It's like a defense system after dealing with a major stress bomb. Traumas help us survive and have been around since forever. They kind of act as warning labels for dangerous situations, so next time we know how to react better. Think of a positive physical trauma, like getting calluses on your hands from weeding. At first, it hurts, but over time your hands toughen up and you stop feeling the pain. Or when you burn your tongue the first time you sip hot tea, but later on you learn to wait for it to cool down. Traumas teach us stuff. But here's the thing, traumas should have a limit. If they don't, they can really mess you up, turning into a constant wound that shapes who you are. Most of the traumas we face as kids aren't physical, they're emotional. We all need connection, especially when we're young. But sometimes seeking that connection makes us compromise on being our true selves. For instance, when parents leave a child in his crib and he thinks they won't come back, that fear gets stuck in his head. Many situations, from simple denials to serious emotional or physical abuse, can leave a mark on kids. It's like when a parent compares their kid unfavorably to someone else, makes the child feel defective. To cope, the child might try to be like that other person just to get some love and attention. Trauma is a bit like a warning system gone haywire. It's supposed to protect us, but when it goes overboard, it can mess with who we are, turning us into something we're not. Glass, wood, spring. Okay, so parents have this tricky job of kind of traumatizing their kids in a controlled way. It's like preparing them for a tough world out there, sort of toughening them up. But doing this without messing them up completely is a real challenge because, let's face it, humans are complicated beings. You know that book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb? It talks about how different systems respond to chaos. So there are fragile things that break easily, like a lamp or a window. And if someone's never faced any challenges, they end up fragile too. Anything can get them down. Then there's the resistant stuff, like wood or rubber. They can take a hint, but aren't invincible. Resilient things, like a spring, get bent out of shape, but spring back to their original form. These days, people love to compare resilience to that spring, kind of bouncing back from tough situations. But here's the cool part. Nassim Taleb talks about anti-fragile systems. These things don't just handle stress. They actually benefit from it, getting better and stronger than they were before. It's not something you find in materials, but in the world of humans. Taleb loves using bones as an example. You know how bones get stronger when they're under stress? Like, imagine working at a moving company for a while. Your bones would actually get stronger. But hang out in a stress-free zone like a space station for a month, and your bones weaken again. Same goes for muscles. They grow stronger when they face small stresses, like when you tear them slightly at the gym. For our minds, there's this quote by Howard Fast. There is no growth without the pain of learning. It's like, if something's too easy, you're probably not learning much. We'll dive deeper into how to use traumas to your advantage later in the book, but for now, let's keep exploring the topic. Cool, right? Humans are not resilient. Hey, if you're on the ball, you've probably figured out that calling people resilient is kind of old school. Because you see, humans are not like materials. We're way more complex. As a complex system, a bit of trauma can actually make us better. But cross a certain limit and we could break. There's no going back to how we were after a big hit. That whole spring bouncing back thing? Nah, it doesn't apply to us humans. Check it out. Growth happens with those little traumas within limits. Let's say you're hitting the gym. First day, you lift 5 pounds on the bench press. Ouch! You're sore for days. Now imagine going for 50 pounds right off the bat without any training. You might end up injuring yourself badly, and that's the end of your gym plans. Someone who's a pro bodybuilder can't use those newbie weights to get the same little ouch. They need way more weight to push their limits. When you handle those controlled little traumas at the gym, you're better geared up for real-life stuff. From climbing stairs to lifting heavy things without wrecking your back, you've got it covered. It's those small bumps that matter, like a toddler learning to walk, falling, getting up, and trying again. Traumatized childhood. Listen up, a kid without a bit of trauma won't stand a chance out there. Think of it like someone who's never worked out trying to lift a heavy box. Ouch! Back pain! These little knocks are key, and home is supposed to be the place where kids get ready for the real deal. But you know what? That's not how it often goes down. Our parents or caregivers, knowingly or not, shape us into this sort of acceptable box according to society's rules. It's a whole process filled with pressure, judgment, repression, rejection, and a ton of other unnecessary traumas that push kids away from their true selves. The problem? We end up with traumas that are too much to handle, just like someone hitting the gym for their first time and doing exercises way beyond their capacity. And you know what that means? Lifelong consequences, kind of like lingering after effects. To sum it up in simpler terms, we gather our own pile of bumps and bruises, and from there, we build our shields to dodge pain and keep ourselves alive. When these knocks match what we can handle, we grow and evolve. But when they're way off base, we're left wounded. Tough gig, huh? What the hell does this have to do with me? All right, so you're all grown up now, and you're probably wondering what on earth I'm rambling on about. Well, traumas, my friend, get stored in our nervous system for good, even when they're outdated. Unless we do something about them, they're there to stay. Our brains? Well, they have a tough time telling what's real from what's not, what's good from what's bad. Plus, they're timeless. Something that freaked you out at 2 can still send shivers down your spine at 90. We're all carrying around these ancient traumas from childhood. You know, the ones that surpassed our coping skills back then, but are pretty much irrational now. Remember being abandoned, rejected, or not living up to someone's expectations? Yet none of that stuff actually kills us, but we're out here acting like it's life or death. That childhood fear of rejection might pop up later as a terror of public speaking. Seems pretty ridiculous in adulthood, right? You're not going to keel over if the crowd doesn't give you a standing ovation. It's just an old, outdated fear. Our true selves, our authentic versions, are buried under all this crap left behind by these ancient traumas. Maybe you're thinking, hey, I don't have those fears you mentioned. Kudos if that's true, but I'm skeptical. We aren't always aware of our fears. It's more of a sneaky process. The moment something pokes at a trauma, our instinct kicks in to dodge it and shield ourselves. Tricky, huh? The time machine. All right, check this out. You get hit with a situation that triggers your fear or anxiety, and bam! Your defense mechanism kicks in, shoots adrenaline through you, and suddenly that fear vanishes. You can act, run, fight, whatever. If you just froze up feeling scared, you'd be like a deer in headlights. No action. But here's the catch. It only goes down in situations tied to your traumas. Your mind's got the need for speed. It reacts faster than the Flash. Mom does something that pokes that old trauma, and in a snap you're reacting, ditching the fear, and acting on some ancient trauma. You're not thinking. You're just going with the flow. Remember that compulsion I talked about earlier? That irresistible internal nudge making you do the same thing repeatedly? Well, guess what? Your reactions to those traumas, yeah, they're a kind of compulsion too. Let's talk scale here. You're packed with outdated fears that don't even make sense anymore, yet they're still making you act like a robot when you bump into these old traumas. Some of these traumas are so normal in our culture that even our defense behaviors have them on speed dial. Jealousy is a prime example. You'll hardly clock when you're acting irrationally, treating the present like it's a replay of the past. So, how do you know when you're in the drama of old? Well, there are signs. You might end up blaming someone or something, whining, having a full-on meltdown, avoiding the issue, cursing, manipulating folks, playing the victim, well, you name it. Reflect on these, and you'll notice they're all tied to some fear cooked up by your defense system. They're all old, outdated fears in disguise. Here's the thing about these outdated traumas. They're not actually a threat to your life anymore, even if your defense mechanism thinks they are. We're all living with these imaginary fears, and our reactions are just leftovers from ages ago. You might think this gets better over time. Nope. The issue is we don't even clock these fears as past traumas. Our lack of awareness makes us believe they're legit reasons for these protective reactions, physically and emotionally. That's tricky, huh? Explicit and implicit. Let's get back into this jealousy thing. Ever considered feeling jealous of your mom back in the early years? But hey, let's leave Freud out of this conversation. It's about how if your mom shifts focus to someone else, like a sibling, you might feel like your life's on the line, thanks to the early dependency on a primary caregiver. Then you grow up, get a partner, and that bond brings in some dependency too. If that partner splits for someone else, do you make it out alive? Absolutely. But your subconscious might disagree. You end up nursing this concern like a massive, dependent little critter worried about being abandoned, and you freak out. Scientifically speaking, the reptilian and limbic systems in our brain carry tons of traumas, shutting down the thinking part, the neocortex, and making us react all irrationally without a clue why. We've got two types of memory. Implicit memory kicks in while doing things like driving. You do stuff automatically without much thought. Explicit memory? It's like when you recall your first time driving, a significant moment way back. The thing is, most of what we do doesn't get tagged in explicit memory. Sneaky, huh? Here's the rundown. We're loaded with unreal fears chilling in our nervous system. We're not aware they're there or why we react to them. We don't clue in that these fears came from the past, so they seem totally legit, and we make excuses for acting the way we do. Science says we start recording explicit memories after about 18 months. So what about that time up to a year and a half? That's when we're most traumatized. Before hitting 2, babies mostly record their implicit memories and traumas. Say someone's freaked out about getting cheated on, abandoned. They ended up acting super paranoid, making their partner uncomfortable enough to end the relationship. And guess what? That initial fear triggers actions that prove our fears right. Yep, I was scared of being dumped, and didn't they just dump me? Fear feeds itself. The hippocampus, a brain part in the limbic system, plays a role here. Booze messes with the hippocampus, making us forget what happened when we're sloshed. Even cooler, cortisol, released during megastress, acts like booze in our hippocampus. In traumatic situations, explicit memories don't record, but implicit memories do, making you mega traumatized. even if you can't recall it later. Imagine a person in a severe car wreck. Their body releases so much cortisol that it stops recording explicit memories, so they don't realize the danger or pain they're in. Lots of folks who've been abused report this disconnect in memory. Some don't even remember the abuse. But both kinds of events keep churning out implicit memories. That reptilian system can set off reactions, like fleeing, fighting, or freezing, unconsciously, triggered by some ancient fear. Here's a simple example. Teenagers often react explosively to their parents, yelling and cursing over tiny stuff like being asked to clean their room. It's an automatic reaction to past trauma, fear of abandonment, fear of being blamed, or a deep shame from childhood. Despair, powerlessness, anger, betrayal. They carry these feelings unconsciously throughout life. Let's face it, most of our explosive reactions don't match the real problem. Like when someone tells you off and you explode as if they threatened your whole family. We've got to start healing from these unrealistic reactions. It's the best way to transform our inner world. Yeah, but I don't have that much fear lurking in me, you might say. But guess what? Most of your relationship issues, together with family, pals, partner, work, or school, come from your past. If you got rid of these old traumas, a big chunk of your social stress would vanish. Even someone stuck in an aggressive relationship would likely bounce if they were healed from past abandonment traumas. That's why relationships become the easiest place to spot these traumas. The friends or partners you pick and how you treat them screams volumes about your own traumas. Our past totally skews our perspective, leading to feelings like, I'm not good enough, something's wrong with me, my life's a mess. We're lugging around loads of crap in our heads, thinking they're genuine thoughts and emotions. We've got this mistaken belief that we're cherry-picking what we like and that all our thoughts are absolute truths. But I gotta break it to you. Everything we desire or think is the result of the context we're exposed to, the zillion stimuli filling our brains every day, resulting in an infinite mental diarrhea. I wish I could tell you that becoming aware of this fixes everything and we're good to go. But nope. Before we climb out of this pit, we've got to dig a tad deeper. This evil needs treating from its roots. Whew, that's quite the ride, isn't it? Chapter 5. Free Will. Sri Sri Ravi Shankar says, life is a combination of destiny and free will. The rain is destiny, the possibility of getting wet or not is yours. And Stephen Hawking said, even people who say that everything is predetermined and that we can't do anything to change destiny look both ways before crossing the street. In September 1848, during an explosion, an iron rod pierced through the skull of Phineas P. Gage, resulting in a distressing scene. Weighing approximately 7 pounds, the rod entered through Gage's left cheek, coming out the top of his head and causing extensive damage to his frontal lobe. Surprisingly, contrary to expectations, he survived the accident. The object was later discovered 30 feet away from the explosion site. At the age of 25, Phineas was promptly taken for urgent medical attention. Adding to the misfortune, Dr. John Harlow inadvertently exacerbated the situation by using his fingers to extract metal fragments from the skull, causing an infection in the wound. This led the worker to enter a semi-comatose state. However, Phineas exhibited incredible resilience akin to Joseph Clymer, a Brazilian theater character known for surviving various tragedies, and eventually made a recovery. Merely 2 months after the accident, Phineas Gage was already strolling freely around the village. Nevertheless, the aftermath proved challenging for Phineas. His behavior underwent a significant change. He lost his ability to socialize, adopted a more abrupt and hesitant demeanor, and became disrespectful, resistant to advice, and perennially irritable. Furthermore, he abandoned his personal aspirations and began acting impulsively without considering the consequences of his actions. His transformation was so profound that rumors began circulating that he was no longer the same person. Another case involves a family man who suddenly exhibited disturbing behavior associated with child molestation. Overnight, he began collecting child pornography, engaging in child prostitution, and molesting his own niece, among other crimes. Upon conviction, he faced two choices: incarceration or participation in a rehabilitation program for sex addicts. Naturally, he chose the latter. However, the individual struggled to control his impulses. On the eve of his prison term, he visited a hospital's emergency room, requesting an MRI of his brain. The scan revealed a sizable tumor in a brain region responsible for regulating social behavior, including sexual impulses. Upon removal of the tumor, the aberrant behavior ceased. After some time, the man relapsed into his criminal behavior, prompting another MRI scan. Alarmingly, the cancer had returned. What about freedom? Phineas Gage and the occasional child molester represent only a couple of cases where brain damage directly influenced social behavior. These anecdotes challenge the widely held belief in free will. When discussing free will, a prevailing belief suggests that our future isn't predetermined. This belief implies that actions today, combined with external factors such as luck, shape an unwritten future. Free will, under this definition, hinges on the absence of predetermination. While I don't subscribe to predetermination, you're free to believe as you wish. Ta-da! The definition of free will in this book diverges. Here, it refers to the freedom of choice, the capacity to decide based on personal will and judgment. Whether you accept it or not, your brain influences your decisions milliseconds before you believe you've made them, creating the illusion of personal choice. Put simply, your mind receives decisions from your brain, not the other way around. So when you feel like you've made a choice, your brain has already made that decision before your conscious awareness kicks in. We're not deserving of credit or blame for who we are. As discussed earlier, this credit, or blame, is a blend of genetics and the environmental influences we're exposed to. From this standpoint, numerous researchers question the existence of free will. Where does it exist? If a mere change in environment or a brain injury can alter our essence and behavior, you might question the significance of determining the existence of free will. Well, scientific evidence indicates that individuals who reject free will tend to exhibit more aggression, reduced productivity, increased antisocial tendencies, and are even more predisposed to dishonesty. Essentially, disbelief in free will impacts brain function, thereby shaping the attitudes of the individual. A scientific method. Check this out. Two researchers got together to see how much believing in determinism, or free will, can mess with how we act. They split up folks into two teams for this test. One crew got readings promoting determinism, while the other crew got the free will stuff. Then, both gangs had to do tasks where they could cheat by grabbing answers from the computer while solving problems. So what happened? Well, the first bunch, the determinism squad, ended up cheating. But those who had their heads filled with free will ideas decided not to cheat. Here's the thing. Did they even know why they made those choices? Nope. Reading those texts earlier had already influenced them to act that way without them even realizing it. In the end, even though it looked like a snap decision, the folks who thought they had free will managed to keep it honest. Meanwhile, those who believed they weren't accountable for their actions went for the cheating route. Almost a computer. Let's dive deeper into this. The mind and body aren't separate entities. They're a package deal. They're like this dynamic duo running the show, all governed by a bunch of physical processes we haven't even fully mapped out yet and maybe never will. Here's a way to wrap your head around the mind's workings. Picture it like a computer. Now, I know it's not totally right to say the mind is just like a computer, but in some ways, they're kind of similar contraptions. A computer has its physical side, the hardware, and the non-physical part, the software. The software can't even exist without the hardware. It's totally reliant on it. Ever had a hardware issue messing up your software's performance? Same idea. But hey, mess up the software, damage it, or forget to update it, and your computer's toast. Now, let's look at our human setup. a split between the brain and the mind. Some folks claim the brain's capable of anything, but it's not that cut and dry. The mind and brain team up, working hand in hand as one thing. I won't get into the soul or spirit debate since that's more about personal beliefs. Let's stick to the basics, the physical stuff. A living body, a brain, and an active mind. If the brain gets messed up, you can bet the mind's not going to run smoothly either. Body and mind. Now let's examine the proof. No brain is immune to the effects of drug use. They mess with how your body functions, which in turn messes with your mind's game. Take a mom who doesn't produce oxytocin during childbirth. She might not connect with her baby right off the bat. Even something as abstract and non-physical as maternal love kicks off with a brain command to release a hormone, not some spiritual or mental vibe. Loads of studies back this up. Changing your posture can actually sway your mood, for better or worse. Again, it's your physical bod that's calling the shots on your mind's state. And here's something. When we're down in the dumps, we tend to slouch, slump our shoulders. These facts are so spot on that there are pros who can read your feelings and intentions just by checking out your body language. Your whole gig gets affected by your diet, rest, physical activity, and a bunch of other things. If you're eating junk, not catching enough sleep, etc., even your willpower takes a hit. Depression can hit either because of mental stuff or because your happy hormones aren't kicking in enough. Body and mind are a package deal. If one part changes, it's like a domino effect messing with the whole system. You are your body. Okay, so you might argue, I'm not just my body. Fair point, but let's break it down. Without that body of yours, you wouldn't be here, at least not in the way I'm talking about. And hey, lose a part, like, say, your hand, you'd still be you, just minus a hand. You'd be this half-human figure figuring out life in a whole new way. And here's the thing. Your body and mind team up to create this unique human package. It's crucial to get this if you want to keep rolling through the rest of what I've got to say. If you're still skeptical, at least entertain the idea for now. Let's circle back to this explanation. Just like our physical side has different parts, like the nervous system, digestive system, and all that, our non-physical side also has its divisions. Doesn't mean we've got multiple bodies stashed inside us, but more like internal departments each doing their own thing. You can stare at your hand, study it separately from your body, but it's still part of the whole deal. It's not flying solo, except for you, thing, a little hand from the Addams family, high five to the whole gang. Brain sliced in half. All right, let's break down the brain. It's like this multi-compartmental thing, depending on what you're digging into. Today we're diving into two drawers, the subconscious and the unconscious. They're like the secret hideouts you don't have direct access to. These drawers hold all the stuff we do without even thinking about it. Genetic quirks, cultural bits, upbringing, you name it. Compulsions, sneaky memories, emotions, beliefs, habits, and those autopilot actions, all chilling around in there. It's like this info vault that runs the show without asking you, the brain's owner. Some folks seem to have a bit of control here, but for most of us, it's off-limits territory. Now, the unconscious mind? It's the big enigma in science. There are tons of theories trying to crack its code, but they all hit a roadblock at some point. Trying to nail down where the consciousness is and how it operates? Tricky business. Loads of theories, but none have nailed it yet. Let's start from this. Even if we can't exactly define consciousness, you probably get what I'm getting at, right? On autopilot. There's this you inside your noggin. You. When I ask you to recall a movie scene or hum a tune or remember a scent, you'll do it in your head, right? Silently chatting away, setting up this inner convo without saying a word. You're the boss calling the shots. You decide when to move those legs or whether to stay put. That's you. Fully awake and aware. You've probably even got a cute nickname for that voice in your head. I'll call it I. Now, here's the thing with the unconscious mind. It's like I on autopilot, cruising along with little awareness. Ever been scared stiff? Your body's shaking, you're jumping, pure reflex. No stopping that train once it started. At that moment, there's hardly any you in the picture, just a you becoming aware after all those automatic reactions. Now, think about driving, especially the usual route back home. Sometimes it's like, poof, you're suddenly home, right? Shows this autopilot mode, how the brain's a whiz at doing routine stuff without you even focusing on it. It's cool, right? Imagine not being able to tie your shoelaces if we couldn't learn by repetition. But here's the thing. When we're always on autopilot, we end up eating, working, walking, and driving without even realizing it. Living life on autopilot, it's like missing out on actually living. When we snap back to being fully aware, that's when we've got choices and intentions again. It's about reconnecting with ourselves sometimes, making decisions with purpose rather than just, going through the motions. Conscious and connected. I know what I'm about to say might sound a bit off, but trust me, it ain't contradictory. When we're fully present and connected, we actually get stuff done quicker. Sure, autopilot seems easy. It's low effort, right? But when you're dialed into what you're doing, your intentions and actions match up better. You stay on track, avoid redoing stuff, skip wasting time on useless tasks, and even drop goals that aren't worth the fuss. It's about making choices while being totally in the moment, paying attention. That's getting back to living, my friend. Imagine your power goes out and you're fumbling in the dark trying to find those stored candles. Every step you take is super conscious. You're mapping out where each piece of furniture is, guessing where that candle might be hiding, thinking through every nook and cranny. Consciousness is all about being present, not zoning out. It's about what you experience, the memories you collect, and the actions you take. It's like the real deal, playing by the rules of time and space. We see it as ours, something we identify with. The sad truth is, most folks just think their self is a jumble of feelings and thoughts. But hey, we've talked about this before. Emotions and thoughts are just what you've been exposed to, not your core. Most people only know the brainy side, the process of thinking, judging, planning, digging up old memories for solutions. But consciousness, it's more than just thinking about stuff. It's being aware that you're thinking. Wild, right? Maybe we don't even need words to connect with the world. We can experience it directly through our senses, listening to the birds, sniffing those flowers, or soaking in the smile of our loved one. We can understand with both our hearts and our heads. Thinking isn't all there is to conscious living. It's bigger and more encompassing than that. In the book Mindfulness by J. Mark Williams, he compares consciousness to a mountain or an observation deck, a spot where you can see all your thoughts and feelings take shape. Consciousness gives you a different perspective, distancing you from your thoughts and feelings, letting you quiet that mental chatter and holding back those impulsive reactions. It's like seeing the whole world at once. Deep, huh? When you live on autopilot, you're a puppet to your urges, whims, and impulsive thoughts, a boat just floating along the currents. But hey, it doesn't have to be that way. Think of this world as a sea, your desires as the winds pushing your boat, or those compulsive currents steering your life. But guess what? You've got a tiny rudder that can steer you where you really want to go. Yeah, 60% of you might be genetics, and most of the rest is your environment, but that tiny part, your consciousness, is like the steering wheel, calling the shots. You've got the power of free will, making real choices instead of just drifting along. I like this quote, "Free will is the reward for those who live consciously." The power of choice. You don't pick your personality, your thoughts, or your body. But you've got this tiny 10% under your belt that's all about consciousness, steering your boat in the direction you want, or at least close to that. Ever heard of Leandro Carnal? He says we're the big shots of our lives. Yup, you don't control everything, but you've got a good grip on a lot. What you dish out in this life is your call. But hey, if you slack off in that boat, you might end up drifting aimlessly. Most times, that inertia doesn't lead to paradise. It's more like heading straight for shipwreck. Understanding free will ties in with freedom. It's not about doing whatever floats your boat. When you limit yourself to easy, low-energy stuff, you become a slave to a mindless routine, those compulsions driving your life. And guess what? These impulses aren't your core. They're just baggage you're carrying around. Real freedom? It's having the freedom to do what you truly need. So, here's the final assessment. You're not 100% at the mercy of your genes, thoughts, or emotions. Getting this is a big leap toward change. When this trio tries dragging you back to autopilot mode, consciousness gives you a heads up. You've got the choice to go with it or not. With consciousness in the driver's seat, that's when free will kicks in. Ever noticed how people who believe in free will are more honest and less violent? They're clued into the compulsions and make the right moves, not just what's easy. They're the masters of their life's rudder. Let me paint a picture. You craving that cake? It's like an urge brought on by memories, genetics, thoughts, and emotions. You've got zilch control over all that. But your consciousness steps in, seeing the bigger picture. You're overweight, and it's time to fight that craving. So you choose to resist to keep those pounds off and dodge health issues. If your consciousness loses that battle, you'll wolf down that cake, but then that guilt creeps in. Letting consciousness win these fights, that's what makes for a better quality of life, physically and mentally. You stop being a puppet to your impulses. Not getting what freedom's about? Loads of us live half asleep, almost hypnotized, spending more time on autopilot than we should. Thinking freedom means being a slave to your urges, life just passes you by. Notice how days seem shorter. Life's routine pulls you into your head, away from living. Ever watched Click with Adam Sandler? He zips through life on autopilot, pretty much like a life without consciousness. Here's a reality check from Mindfulness by J. Mark G. Williams. You're 30 with an expected lifespan of 80, so you've got just 50 years left. And if you're only conscious for, let's say, 2 hours out of the 16 you're awake, the average human's consciousness time, I'm not kidding here, your real-life clock's ticking at only 6 years and 3 months. Bet you spend more time than that in a meeting with your boss. Now, if someone said they had a terminal illness with just 6 years left, you'd be heartbroken, right? But have you ever thought you might be wasting your years? Imagine doubling or tripling those conscious hours in a day, basically doubling or tripling your life expectancy. It's like living to 130. Amp up the game. Triple, quadruple those mindfulness hours. People with terminal illnesses shell out loads on meds and vitamins, some without any proven effect, just to add a few more years. But guess what? You can do it too by learning to live right, fully aware of your life. Sure, it's not just about the years, I get that, but let's face it. Conscious folks are less anxious, less stressed, feel more fulfilled, and have oodles of energy. Life seems longer and happier when you slow down and savor it. Sometimes people wake up from this half-asleep state after going through a crisis, losing a loved one, facing an illness, a breakup, a new love, or an accident. These external triggers shake us up, making us realize how lifeless and unconscious we've been. But some folks just miss out on those chances to wake up, cruising through life half asleep. If you're here and think you've never been half asleep, chances are you haven't really woken up. Ready for a wake-up call? Like in The Matrix, choose the blue or red pill. Recognizing the problem's the first step to snapping out of it. Here's my little nudge for you to take stock and wake up. Your call. Good luck. Chapter 6. It happens in the best families. Sadhguru says, the nature of the universe is that even if you do the right things for the wrong reasons, it still works. But if you do the wrong things, even for the right reasons, it doesn't work. People need to get that. It's a scenario familiar to the best of us. You've sipped your chamomile tea, thrown on your comfiest PJs, brushed your teeth, and nestled under the covers. Now it's time to sleep. But just as you close your eyes, thoughts flood in. That report due tomorrow, untouched. Fine, I'll tackle it tomorrow. Then there's the call to grandma you've put off, and the cringeworthy comment you made to your 7th grade teacher. Tossing and turning, each twist brings a new, random thought that blocks sleep's approach. You finally drift off almost at dawn, only to spend the day yawning and hunting for the next cup of coffee. Here's another scenario. A minor incident occurs, seemingly inconsequential, but it triggers a cascade of negative thoughts about yourself, your abilities, efforts, plunging you into an emotional quicksand, drowning in unwarranted unhappiness and anxiety. I'll give you one more. You've eagerly anticipated a party, a concert, an event, promising absolute delight for days. Yet on the day itself, amidst the revelry, you realize you're not having fun. You watch others dancing, reveling in the moment, but you can't seem to join in. The more you think you should be enjoying yourself, the more joy eludes you, spiraling into an abyss of negativity without a glimmer of reprieve. Shoulder shrug time. You've got Mark Williams, the brains behind books like The Mindful Way Through Depression and Mindfulness, he teamed up with Danny Penman for that one, rocking the scene as a professor and clinical psych researcher over at Oxford. He's diving deep into the human mind, unraveling some mind-blowing concepts about why we do the things we do. Chapter 11 of his work? Yeah, I'm digging into that treasure trove to share some nuggets. But hey, don't think my insights replace reading mindfulness. They're just giving you a sneak peek into these behavior patterns that aren't in our human instruction manual. These babies are scientifically proven, shedding light on why we sometimes do those mood swings. Ever notice how your mood flips out of nowhere? Like you're all happy-go-lucky one minute, then boom, you're swamped with anxiety or feeling down for no clear reason. Turns out that's a universal roller coaster we're all on. Okay, let's rewind a bit. Back in the day, scientists thought our thoughts could change our mood. But hold up, it's a two-way street. Our mood? That can totally mess with our thoughts, too. Kind of like how our mood ties up with our posture, remember? Imagine a gloomy day. It can totally throw you into a funk, opening the floodgates for sad thoughts that take you on that downward spiral. Now flip it. A sunny morning can jazz up a dull routine, making it all lively and awesome. New studies say even tiny changes in how we carry ourselves can shake up our whole outlook on life. Smiling, frowning, or just tweaking your posture? Huge impact on your mood and what you're thinking. Ever passed someone beaming on the street and found yourself grinning back? A smile can actually make you feel happier, and guess what? It's contagious. Why? Because our mind isn't a lone ranger. It's tight with our body. They're in cahoots, sharing all this emotional intel. Your body's feels, influenced by your feelings and emotions. And what you're thinking? Totally impacted by what's going down in your body. So think about this. Researchers found that folks feeling low tend to saunter slower, swing their arms less, and their upper bodies on a side-to-side shimmy instead of the usual up-and-down gig. Oh, and they're less upright, kinda leaning forward. But wait, there's more. Crappy posture isn't just a depression thing. Give it a shot. Hunch those shoulders, bow your head, and we'll see how you feel. If it brings your mood down, switch it up, sit up straight, head and neck in the right place. Bet you'll notice a mood boost. And hey, it's not just about how you carry yourself. What you eat and how you move can mess with your sleep, energy levels, willpower, and, you guessed it, your mood, thoughts, and feelings. Survival mechanism. In this book, we've been banging on about how the brain and body are like partners in crime, always influencing each other. Now, I could geek out and dive into a long-winded explanation about brain development or blame our brain's evolution on the African plains, but let's keep it real simple. What is the main job of your brain? Simple. It's keeping you alive. The brain's all about making decisions that won't mess things up for you. Being right is a big deal for the brain, which is why it's always trying to minimize the uncertainties. Now, you get why it's so darn hard to admit you're wrong? So think about this. When you keep doing something over and over, your brain's like, whoa, this is important. It starts setting up crucial systems to keep you surviving. Repeated actions build these mental highways like those grooves in your mind that shape your habits and addictions. At first, making a habit needs some serious effort, like slashing through a jungle with a machete. Would you rather do that or stroll along a smooth, mosquito-free path? I'm guessing you choose the chill path. Well, guess what? So does your brain. Instead of hacking through the jungle every time, it carves out an easier, faster route from A to B. When it's time to act, your brain leans towards what's familiar, easy, and quick. With each repetition, those mental grooves get deeper, making the transition from effort to automatic behavior a breeze. In the grand scheme, these grooves are like energy savers. Food used to be a real struggle to get. No fancy supermarkets or food delivery apps back in the day, just local eats and seasonal fruits. That scarcity made our brains super stingy with energy. That's why your brain is all about going on autopilot. It's desperate to save energy and keep you kicking. Staying alive today is its job, but worrying about your quality of life tomorrow, that's another story. But here's the flip side of that coin. While this is a survival trick, it has its downsides. Procrastination, smoking, couch potato mode, these become mental highways too. Some deal with negative thoughts or moods. They carve their own grooves. Over time, these grooves get deeper, making it way easier for negativity to waltz in and chill out. Negative thoughts, self-doubt, feeling blue, or getting anxious, they hang around without much effort. And if the brain's all about saving energy, these negative vibes can get triggered by super mundane stuff, a tiny annoyance, a dip in energy, things so small we might not even notice. Negative thoughts often show up as these tough questions we throw at ourselves. Why am I so bummed? What's going on with me? Where did I mess up? What's the deal with my life? Habits are basically these autopilot behaviors from doing stuff over and over. So, when we get stuck in a negative loop, whether it's thoughts or actions, they become part of our daily grind, acting like habits or addictions. Fight or flight. You know those wildlife documentaries where gazelles are legging it from a leopard in the African savannah? They dash like mad until either the leopard snags one or gives up. Once the coast is clear, it's back to hanging out and munching grass. It's like their brain flicks a switch when danger's near and flips it off when it's over. We humans, we've got our version of this. It's all automatic. You don't get a choice in having an adrenaline rush. It just happens. And this nifty defense mechanism is what kept our species going. But the brain doesn't really tell the difference between an external threat, like a lion or a mugger, and an internal one, an annoying memory or future worry. It treats both like equally scary things, especially if they cause anxiety, stress, or fear. Whenever we worry or fear something, whether it's real or all in our head, the fight or flight response kicks in on autopilot. Your body tenses up, your face gets all serious, shoulders square up, and your guts in knots. The mind picks up on this body reaction and goes, "Uh-oh, danger ahead." That's where the roller coaster starts, buddy. By constantly feeling threatened, internally or externally, those brain pathways get reinforced. Remember when you first started driving and shifting gears took all your focus? Now it's like second nature. The brain made a superhighway for that task, making the response lightning fast, no thinking required. Same deal with stress. When you're super stressed, the brain's all about the adrenaline rush. But if stress keeps coming, a tiny mood shift can mess up your day, or even throw you into a worry whirlwind. These shifts seem to pop out of nowhere, sucking your energy and leaving you wondering why you're down in the dumps. Sometimes you don't even notice what triggered the mood swing. It might come from hidden traumas you don't even know you've got. Your brain's just trying to keep you alive, always ready to fight or flee, but it's a heavy toll. Imagine you've ticked off almost everything on your life's checklist but still feel kinda blue today. Threat alert! Then you start wondering why you're not happy, as if that thought alone could zap the sadness. Your brain treats this melancholy like a threat. And how does the brain handle threats? It hates uncertainty, so it fills in the blanks, spinning narratives that fit the threat. Being right equals staying alive. When you face a threat that doesn't make you run, your brain defaults to a mechanism that's always kept you alive. Remember traumas? That thing about using past experiences to deal with current issues? It's how the brain copes with danger, repeating what worked before. If running away from a lion saved your skin once, you'll bolt every time you see a lion, metaphorically, of course. Same with sad stuff. Your mind digs up old memories that made you sad and even conjures future scenes to match. The alarm bells ring not because of real danger, but because of a ghost from the past. The brain struggles to tell real from imaginary, and time's just a blur to it. It's a lightning-fast, behind-the-scenes process. Studies even say folks who struggle to live in the moment and live super busy lives keep their brain's fight-or-flight zone constantly on alert. Sadly, we're not gazelles going back to grazing. Our fight-or-flight mode doesn't switch off that easily. A test. Let's run a little experiment here. Take a moment, feel the book you're reading right now. I know, you say, well, I'm listening to the audiobook version. How can I feel that? Well, grab the phone you're listening to it on and, feel that. Got it? Great. Now, using that same attention, mentally scan your body. Notice any little pain or discomfort lingering. Observe your energy levels, how tired you might feel. Take a moment to delve into this. Now, once you've acknowledged your fatigue, ask yourself, why am I so worn out? What did I do wrong? What's this fatigue trying to tell me? And what might happen if I can't shake it off? Reflect on these questions. Let them linger in your mind. How do you feel now? Probably not great, huh? It's like that time when you were supposed to be having fun but weren't, and the more you thought about it, the worse you felt. This kind of experience is universal. Alongside these probing questions, there's an inherent urge to solve the threat, so to speak, to uncover its root causes and find remedies. But here's the catch. Attempting to explain or banish these feelings often leaves us worse off. And this isn't limited to just one emotion. It applies to a whole range: unhappiness, anxiety, fear, stress. When we're unhappy, the instinct is to search for a cause. But let's be real. These emotions aren't problems. They're just that, emotions. They're reflections of our mind and body states. They don't come with logical solutions. All they demand is to be felt. Understanding that there's no need to solve these emotions makes it easier to let them disappear gradually, like a fog lifting. Let me try to break it down. When you insist on solving the quote-unquote problem of a negative emotion, you activate a powerful mental tool, rational critical thinking. You spot yourself in one place, unhappiness, and want to be in another, happiness. Your mind quickly starts analyzing the gap between the 2 points and strategizing the best route from A to B. It's the active problem-solving mode we're great at, useful for tackling issues, be it navigating an unfamiliar city or organizing a jam-packed work schedule. It's instant and we don't even realize it. A fantastic mechanism, right? Historically, it's how ancient civilizations built pyramids or sailed on primitive boats. So it feels natural to use this approach to solve the problem of unhappiness. But here's where it gets tricky. It forces you to focus on that gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that's when the tough questions hit. What's wrong with me? Where did I go wrong? Why do I keep making the same mistakes? Not only are these questions harsh and self-destructive, but they also push the mind to conjure convincing answers, even if they're far from the truth. Naturally, people believe that the more they ponder a problem, the faster they'll find a solution. But science tells us the opposite. Overthinking these emotional problems can actually hinder our ability to find solutions. It's an utterly useless strategy when dealing with emotional difficulties. The gist? Thoughts are just thoughts. Understanding this problem-solving machine of our brains can help us realize that dwelling on intangible issues isn't productive, it leaves us frustrated. So, the advice stands. Get acquainted with the right approach to handling things, or you're essentially polishing turds. But if that strategy doesn't cut it, how do we manage these thoughts and feelings? Well, consider our thoughts as cell phone notifications. They pop up, grabbing our attention, but that doesn't mandate an immediate response. Picture being focused on work or study when a spam notification disrupts you. You glance at it, realize it's spam, and promptly swipe it away. Similarly, thoughts are like mental notifications. They crop up constantly but don't necessarily hold absolute truths, define who we are, or demand instant action. Thoughts are just thoughts. Our thoughts, they're akin to a mental dump of everything we come across. In other words, mental diarrhea. What we see, hear, read, or experience. Loads of these thoughts barge in without invitation. They're like virus-infected spam, persistent and harmful, lurking in our minds, looping incessantly. But once we start treating thoughts as mere mental notifications, we regain some control. We realize we needn't buy into every thought that pops up. There's no mandate to wrangle or evade them either. Imagine yourself in a classroom, focused on a lesson, when suddenly thoughts about dinner invade. You acknowledge that dinner thought and swiftly shift your attention back to the class. No need to dwell on the dinner thought. Just let it pass. We can visualize thoughts akin to traffic signs. Some are critical, like speed limits or hazardous curves, while most are just directions to nearby restaurants. Just as we don't heed every sign on the road, we can choose which thoughts deserve our focus and action, letting others pass without disrupting our mental path. However, even with this approach, there's still the challenge of dealing with the constant influx of alerts. Imagine your phone ringing 5,000 times a day. It'd be exhausting. So how do we tackle this? Firstly, by minimizing the stimuli triggering these mental alerts. But how do we do that? So far, we've discussed how deep we're entrenched in this mess, but from here on, we'll focus on finding a way out, a glimmer of hope to break free from this cycle. It's time to walk together towards a solution rather than futilely polishing a turd. Hold my hand and let's embark on this journey. Chapter 7, Unnecessarism. Jackie French Kohler said, "There are two ways to be rich. One is by acquiring much, and the other is by desiring little." Jonathan Haidt has this hilarious take on our brains. He compares them to an elephant and a rider. So think of the elephant as all our driving forces, our thoughts, desires, habits. It's like our autopilot mode, you know? It's driving and chatting away without a second thought. Now, the rider, that's our rational side, our willpower, he's the dude trying to steer the elephant, but let's face it, the elephant's really in charge. You wouldn't argue with an elephant, right? That guy's massive. So the rider's just a tiny advisor on top, yelling directions. But guess who decides? The elephant, because he's the boss here. No matter how hard we try to boss the elephant around, it does what it's used to. It goes where it gets rewards, like food and love, and dodges things that seem sketchy. The rider only pulls the strings when there's no problem between him and the elephant. Trust me, conflicts exist, and they're plenty. To take control of your life, you've got two options. Either train the elephant or level up your rider skills. But in a face-off, the elephant always wins. The only way to beat it is to train it. We mentioned earlier that the part you control is like a tiny ship rudder. Yeah, small but mighty, steering where you want. Same goes for the elephant. Your control's minimal, but you can put on a heck of a show. So, you can't control the elephant, so quit trying so hard. But you can upgrade the rider and train the elephant. Imagine a sleepy rider with no control over the elephant. It's a disaster waiting to happen. At the start of this book, we basically gave the rider a few smacks to wake up and realize he needs to level up. We shook him and said, "Dude, wake up. You're snoozing and this ain't gonna work." Now the rider's half awake, asking, "Where am I going again?" All right. Time to show you how to steer the elephant. First off, the environment and the path you choose matter big time. Imagine leading the elephant from point A to B, and it's full of temptations. Say you're using food as a reward, but the place is loaded with tasty treats, or the elephant's not even hungry. Or you're trying to upgrade as a rider in a noisy class with a tight schedule. Result? A flop. Even though you're awake, you won't hit your goal. Long story short, it's a tag team between the elephant and the rider inside us. The rider's smart, but the elephant's got muscle. To fix this, train the elephant and level up the rider. But top-notch training won't help if the surroundings ain't friendly. Got it? The environment is the key to success. The meditation trend. You know, in today's world, we've got a zillion books and videos all preaching about mindfulness, and like any trend, some folks take it to a whole nother level, treating it like a religion. Meditation. What pops into your head? Probably a monk in some serene spot in nature, right? Well, think about a monk's life for a second. It's simple, man. Prayers, basic tasks, and they're not into hoarding stuff. They're like, nah, I'm good. Now, check this out. A monk strips life of anything that could wreck their focus. They ditch whatever might distract them from their zen. Remember how we chatted about thoughts being like diarrhea? Well, monks kind of control their diet, so to speak. They eat small and keep little stuff, so they don't have to be held in a mental number 2. I mean, could you meditate with a case of the runs? No, right? Same deal here. You can't do squat if you're dealing with that. And expecting you to meditate like a monk, but in your regular life, that's just not fair. And asking you to give up your whole life for that? Total nonsense. Meditation's awesome, no doubt, and we'll dive deeper into that later. How it's gold for training both your brain's rider and the wild elephant, but it's pointless if the scene ain't right. That's why I want to chat about what's crucial in any process. The path, dude. The environment. The question. Remember how I emphasized earlier that the mind and body are tag team champs? Well, when it comes to making real changes, you got to focus on both, not just your mind, but also the world around you. It's about where you're at, how you're doing, and taking care of that place, your body and your home. Let's start small, like tidying up your room or apartment. It's like finding a cheat code that makes a big diff and gives you that let's keep going vibe. Sprucing up your space isn't just about making things pretty. It's like a mental detox. You see instant results. Unlike hitting the gym or improving your diet where results take time, right? Gym newbies bail because they feel the burn but see zero gain. Yet when you tidy up, boom, instant gratification, and it pushes you to spruce up other parts of your life. So, that's my tip. Start your life cleanse here. Once your den, office, or hangout spot is shipshape, it's like a kick to organize the rest of your life. From what you eat to your hobbies, the people you hang with, and what you read. You'll take charge out of many parts of your life. We all agree, a clean, tidy space feels top-notch. You might not live in a Marie Kondo paradise, but hitting up a clean, organized spot feels great, right? That's because, just like how the body impacts the mind, the environment is a big player too. Everything around us, the place we chill, what we absorb, our people, our friends, kinda shapes our mental diet. Specifically, our physical setup. It's an extension of us and our ideas. Remember when we talked about battling thought diarrhea? It's like literal diarrhea. Once it kicks off, it's chaos. But we can control what we feed our minds to avoid the mess. The environment is like brain food. It can either feed us a mental buffet or turn us into a mess. We gotta tidy it up so it doesn't just add to the mental chaos. Disorder doesn't just happen. Your place doesn't go chaotic out of thin air. Nope, it's all in our daily moves. Starts right in the noggin. You might say, I never thought about the mess. How did it happen? Well, if you don't aim for order, chaos gets comfy. That simple. Look at Eastern vibes, like Japan. They've rocked minimalist living for ages. Meanwhile, the West's been all about buy all the things. Result? Well, the more stuff you've got, the easier the mess slides in. Unnecessarism. Ever noticed how a messy room messes with your head? It's not just about the clutter. It's like all that stuff's camping out in your brain, making it hard to think straight. When the West got wind that hoarding junk was bad, bam! Minimalism became the new fad, and Marie Kondo swept in with her tidy-up magic. But here's the kicker. Some folks take it to the extreme. They're like, I'll live with one sock and ditch everything else. Next thing you know, they're preaching the minimalist gospel 24/7, trying hard to prove they're on the right path. Sure, we gotta ditch the excess baggage, simplify life, get rid of what's unnecessary. But here's where we find balance. It's all about unnecessarism. Get rid of the fluff, sure, but don't throw out the stuff that actually makes life easier. Radicalizing your lifestyle? Now that's just setting yourself up for chaos. This book's here to save you from that chaos. Look, you don't have to live on bare bones. No need to embrace that less is more manifesto unless you're aiming for monk-level simplicity. Don't let your junk decide your fate. Be the boss of your stuff. Thing is, too much or too little is bad news. It's like the difference between a cure and a poison. It's all about the dose. So what's the secret to a simple life? First off, simple ain't about being broke or settling for junky stuff. It's about keeping things straightforward, hassle-free. That means only owning what truly matters. Happiness isn't about piling up junk. It's about the stories behind the stuff we keep. But what's necessary changes for each of us. Moms need different stuff than teenagers. Athletes vary too. And simplicity? It's a chameleon. It fits your life, your style, your job. No one-size-fits-all deal. The art of tidying up. Picture this. Simplifying means only the real deal stuff sticks around. And hey, for some of us, that real deal might mean some luck stuff. There's the rub. Kick out what doesn't vibe with you, things you got for the wrong reasons. So, time to clean up, right? Let's start with the basics. Look around if you're living in the West. Chances are you've got a ton of stuff you don't really need. You tidy up and poof, mess is back. Packing up to move, you're tossing half your junk. That's your sign. Your place is overflowing with unnecessary baggage. So step one for a tidy life? Toss what's not needed. And hey, necessary here means anything fitting into your life project. But let's face it, most of us aren't exactly sure who we are. That's cool. It's a process. So start with the obvious junk. Clearing out stuff can clear your head, too. Check out the life-changing magic of tidying up. But hey, don't drink the Kool-Aid blindly. Test the waters, see how it floats your boat. Bet you'll feel lighter, more zen. It's a solid read, trust me. Oh, and big caps alert, organizing is key. But guess what? It's easier to keep things in line with fewer items. Here are some cliff notes from the book. First off, chuck stuff before organizing. Categorize, not by room but by type, like all the books first, then clothes, photos, and so on. Hold each thing and ask if it sparks joy. If not, toss it. Easy order. Clothes, books, docs, sentimental stuff, and the rest. Makes decisions easier, trust me. Remember the magic rule? Only keep what brings joy and serves a purpose. Kick out the clutter. It's about having a serene space, not a junkyard. Next up, try this trick. Dump the unsure stuff in one spot. Use the things you need. If it's still in the unsure pile after 6 months or a year, dump it. No memory, no need. And hey, simplifying, it's not about downgrading, all right? Some folks think choosing simpler means crappier. Nah, it's about smart choices. You can opt for a simple car or a smaller house without giving up the good stuff. Making smart choices isn't about skimping. It's about living a richer life. It's a game changer before buying anything. Look at it this way. True richness isn't in how much you spend. It's about what holds meaning for you. Unnecessarism is all about balance. It's not about having everything or whatever society says you should have. It's about what fits you. Cleaned your crib, dump the junk, but those small irritations still bother you? Let's tackle that next. Chapter 8, List of Irritations. At this point, he had already learned enough to know that when he got annoyed with someone else, It was usually because there was something he himself should be doing, and he wasn't doing it. Lev Grossman, The Magician King. Let's crack down on the pesky little things that bug the heck out of you day in and day out. You know, the door that never closes right, or that darn faucet that keeps dripping. They're tiny, but man, they really mess with your headspace. First things first, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Time to spill it all out. Write down every little thing that gets on your nerves. Don't let those annoyances rent space in your head anymore. Oh, and don't let that procrastination bug bite you again. Get that paper and pen pronto. Why is this list making so crucial? For starters, it's like a mental decluttering. Once you've got all those irritations down on paper, there's this weird magic. Your mind knows it's there on that sheet, and suddenly, there's some peace in your head, even if you haven't tackled a single thing. Trust me, having these issues in your head makes them seem bigger than they really are. Secondly, by jotting them down, you're making these irritations real and actionable. No more mental merry-go-round. You've got a clear checklist now. You can either fix these pesky problems or decide they're not worth your energy. It's like sorting out your inner chaos. Making this list is like getting a secret peek into your annoyance patterns. You start noticing what really ticks you off. And the sweet part? You get better at handling frustration. Some of those irritations won't bug you half as much once you put them on paper. Oh, and when I say let go, I mean truly wave goodbye to these annoyances. It's not about sweeping them under the rug and praying they won't resurface like Uncle Joe asking for another favor. Nope, it's about dealing with them for good. I've got my own lists, one for work, one for home. While I'm chasing the good stuff in life, I'm also kicking these irritating little things to the curb along the way. It's all about balance, right? Here we go. Okay, you're all set to shake things up, right? No more just reading and zoning out. It's time to take action for real change. Grab your trusty paper and pen or just pop open that notepad app on your phone. If you're out and about, think about those tiny tasks that keep slipping your mind. At work? Home? Anywhere you've got a list of things you can actually tackle. Don't sweat the big stuff. This isn't about tackling a massive project or reading a never-ending book. We're talking about the quick fixes, the small things you've been delaying, like fixing that faucet, sorting out your pet's vaccinations, or reaching out to your aunt. Simple tasks that need a brief moment of your attention. Why bother with these tiny tasks? Well, they may seem small, but procrastinating them sends a sneaky message to your brain. It's like saying, yeah, it's fine to leave this mess here. And guess what? Your brain starts believing it's okay. The result? Chaos everywhere. Now you've got your list of annoyances, around 20 things bugging you, right? It's time to crush them. Set aside a bit of time each day, maybe 20 minutes or so, and tackle one or two tasks. Make it a date with yourself, like, today I'm spending 15 minutes sorting that clutter in the closet. The result? Not only do you solve those pesky problems, but you also feel this weight lift off your shoulders. Trust me, when I fixed that wonky electrical outlet, I walked freely in the room without tripping over cables. And you know what? It felt amazing. Such a small thing, but it made a big difference. Plus, by checking off these little tasks, you're telling your subconscious, hey, I'm a go-getter. It's like flexing that I can do it muscle. Small victories lead to big confidence boosts, you know? So, what's bugging you today? Time to turn those annoyances into victories. Make that list and get ready to crush it. And remember, keep doing this every few months. It's like a mental cleanup that keeps things running smoothly. You fix these small things, you'll find that your focus improves and your peace of mind totally restored. Irritation on a deadline. Remember the annoyance list? It's not just about listing out what bugs you, but also how to tackle it head on. So when you've got those odd 10 minutes between stuff, you won't be scrolling aimlessly through social media. Nah, you'll be knocking those tasks off like a pro. Start small, my friend. It's like a power-up for your motivation. Bagging 6 quick 10-minute tasks? That's gold! It's not about those hour-long marathons. It's about building your I can do this vibe. Plus, it sharpens your focus and boosts your confidence. A real win-win situation. You know how they say practice makes perfect? Well, these 10-minute tasks are your practice rounds. Got a habit of procrastinating? Training yourself to do these quickies builds up your accomplishment muscle. It's like hitting the gym, but for your productivity. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Ask yourself these questions. What's bugging you? How do you fix it? And if you can't fix it, how can you make peace with it or find someone who can help out? Stick a due date and an estimated completion time on these tasks. It's like setting mini goals for each irritation. When you're hunting for stuff to add to your list, keep these questions in mind. What's driving you nuts? What would you tolerate? How do you squash these irritations? Who can be your partner to fix this? Now it's your turn to play Annoyance Exterminator. Say goodbye to these pesky irritations once and for all. Let's do this! Chapter 9. Information Diet. Timothy Ferriss says, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, so don't underestimate the impact of your pessimistic, unambitious, or disorganized friends. If someone isn't lifting you up, they're dragging you down." All right, buckle up for a chat about managing the info overload in our lives. In the early chapters, we dived into how our minds work, how we're not just our thoughts, and how we've been loaded up with tons of junk and traumas. You can't truly know yourself until you've cleared out all that mess. That's why we hit the ground running, talking about tidying up your environment pronto. Remember, you can't always control what's thrown at you, but you sure can control what you let in, right? So, we went deep into cleaning up your environment, both the physical stuff and the need to Marie Kondo your life, keeping only what's essential. But hold up, there's another junk hotspot, the information you're soaking up. Ever heard of an information diet? It might sound bizarre, but here's the gist. It's about consciously choosing what you let into your brain. Why? Well, for starters, to save time. But the real win? It's ditching all that junk that's cluttering up your headspace. Think of your mind as a glass of dirty water. Start pouring in the good stuff and the dirt eventually clears. Even the most polluted river can clean up if we stop dumping trash into it. Now, let's talk about how many hours we waste glued to screens, endless internet scrolls, reading pointless tweets, flicking through news, binging on TV, liking Insta pics or TikTok vids. Add it all up and, whoa, that's a ton of wasted time and useless info. By the way, Americans aged 18 to 34 spend an average of over 4 hours a day on social media and about 3 hours watching streaming services. That's a serious chunk of time, my friend. Time to face the music, right? Want to know if this info overload's messing with you? Grab an app that tracks your screen time, unlocks, and where you spend your online hours. It's an eye-opener, even if you work online. That sense of urgency you feel? Often just smoke and mirrors. Why is this important? Because spending ages online or glued to the tube exposes us to a sneaky foe, advertising. Yep, advertising itself. It's like this master persuader convincing us our lives are trash compared to some fairy tale world. You know why? Because it sells this illusion of perfection. Ever seen those flawless families in margarine ads? Total fantasy. Ads create fake needs. Suddenly that new iPhone seems essential because it's a tad lighter or has a bigger screen. The truth? You don't need it. Companies will do anything to sell more, but you don't have to fall for it. But hold on, it's not just ads. Those internet influencers with their perfect lives, they make us feel crummy about our own daily grind. That perfect body, incredible trips, eternal happiness, it's all airbrushed reality that just makes us feel lousy. Ask yourself, is this info helping me reach my goals, or is it turning me into a couch potato glued to a screen? How much of it truly matters, and how much is just a time-sucking waste? When we're on our deathbed, will we wish we'd watched more TV or spent time on gossip about celebs going commando? Or will we regret not having more meaningful experiences? Tim Ferriss might seem radical in his book, Canceling subscriptions, turning off the TV, monitoring web visits. Sounds extreme, right? But think about it. Our time's precious. Yet we hear people complaining about having no time for anything, while they're up to date with soap operas and Big Brother. Something's off here, right? You bet. Is the issue a lack of time, or our choices about how we use it? This daily info bombardment doesn't just mess with our focus, it seriously messes with our quality of life. Media content aims to hook us for more ads, no matter how shallow or sensational it gets. And ads, they thrive on making us feel like our lives suck without their product. This constant dissatisfaction is not the way to live. At first glance, these media messages might seem harmless, but think about the impact of hundreds of messages every day telling you something's wrong in your life and a product will fix it. They're everywhere. In your feeds, emails, billboards, even in your mailbox. Satisfaction and contentment aren't on their agenda. They want you dissatisfied and craving more, believing happiness is for sale. That's how they keep the cash flowing. But what's the real impact of these dissatisfied messages? Unfortunately, not many studies explore this because big companies ain't funding them. It's hard to resist this info power play. They're like paparazzi hunting us down. And hiding? Forget it. They'll find you. They pump up our desires and steer our choices. It's like that dessert you vowed to skip but end up devouring. It's sneaky and creeps into our minds, making us yearn for stuff we didn't even know we wanted. It's almost like a dirty game, right? Best move? Don't play. Cut off the source of what's not good. We can't coexist without being influenced. Let's say you've tidied up your house, cleared the clutter. But if you keep getting bombarded with ads, sooner or later, you'll end up buying stuff you don't need again. No fighting this influence for long. Sooner or later, it gets to you. Our minds are like a cup. If it's filled, there's no room for more. That's why it's crucial to pick what you fill it with wisely. The more junk, the less space for the good stuff, and vice versa. And just like changing your diet won't make you lose weight overnight, changing your thoughts and desires won't happen just because you decided to ditch 3 news broadcasts. It takes time. So the sooner you start cleaning, the better your quality of life gets. Our minds get used to what's offered. So if you want to escape this flood of temptations, I'll show you 3 steps to do the information diet. Ready? The 3 steps of the information diet. Given everything you've learned now, which path should you take? The information diet suggested by Ferriss doesn't demand extremes like cutting off all information or news. We're not about extremes here in this book. Instead, just consider if the TV channel you're planning to give up has brought any value to your life. Assess whether the social media profiles you follow are just time-wasting or, worse, if they bring more junk into your world. Check if the news and books you read add something positive. Receiving a lot of information alone isn't the issue. The problem is mainly the quality of what you're receiving and whether it's your choice to receive that information. If you consciously decide to watch Big Brother because it truly relaxes and pleases you, great. What you shouldn't do is watch just because everyone else is, or simply because you're bored without knowing why you're watching. For this diet to work, 3 key steps are crucial. Step 1. Even if your thoughts, desires, and dreams are still cluttered, establish a defined main goal. Choose what you want to achieve in life. Remember, this choice can be adjusted or entirely changed. You need a starting direction. Set your goals, recognize what's important today, and list your dreams. Write it down. With this list, you'll discern which information matters and which doesn't. For instance, if you're dealing with financial challenges and aiming to improve, instead of tuning into a news broadcast, seek someone who's a financial reference for your reality and start consuming that content. Gradually, your mind will shift, swapping trash for useful information. For example, if you're facing financial troubles, instead of diving into information about high-value investments, focus on getting out of debt and paying off your house, using resources aimed at your social class. That's because it's your current reality. If you're broke, diving into stock market info won't yield immediate results in your life. First, You need to transform your mindset and clear your debts. Similarly, someone aiming for healthy weight loss won't watch Mr. Olympia's videos, as they might encourage harmful shortcuts like steroids or risky surgeries. Today, you realize that won't work. But if you're feeding on misguided information, you might believe in those wrong ideas, and you'll fail. There's no way around it. Junk in, garbage out. Step 2. Eliminate time wasters. Stop paying for cable or multiple streaming subscriptions. If you're on free TV, it's dire enough to help you quit this habit. Unfollow people on social media who aren't relevant to you, or exit platforms that consume your time. Block sites that are just time-sucking distractions and cancel unnecessary subscriptions. Simultaneously, rid yourself of information sources that don't contribute to your life purpose. If watching the news is vital, stick to one reliable channel that delivers summarized and honest content, skipping sensationalistic repeats. The impact of news is evident. My dad, confined indoors and glued to sensationalistic news, developed an exaggerated fear of crime. Trash that hampers his enjoyment of life. Step 3. Find substitutes. This step is pivotal. If you suddenly have free time with nothing to do, boredom sets in. Then your brain associates time wasting with pleasure and the lack of it with pain. Guess where your mind will take you back in this situation? Right, back to time wasting. Define what you'll do with this free time. Endless possibilities await. Will you take a language course, start a part-time business, study investments? This ties directly to step 1. Moreover, initially these substitutes should offer some pleasure or be relatively easy. You won't swap Instagram scrolling for math lessons right away. So initially, the focus is to quit the junk information and gradually add useful things. For instance, instead of browsing Instagram stories, start learning to cook by watching recipe videos on YouTube. It's a better addition than a meme to your mind. This applies to everything: physical activities, finances, travel, and more. Lastly, choose your information sources wisely. If you're studying weight loss, seek reliable references. Don't follow the blogger promising rapid weight loss in a week. Look for professionals aligning with your reality. Am I going to turn into a zombie? The chief criticism of the whole information diet idea is that those following it might end up clueless about what's happening in the world. But let's get real here. The genuinely important stuff will find its way to you. Imagine this. It's September 11, 2001, and you're on this diet. Do you think you'd miss hearing about the attacks on the World Trade Center? No way. Your buddies would discuss it, the Uber driver would clue you in, and you'd catch wind that something significant had occurred. Yes, you might fall out of the loop on many things, mostly trivial stuff. You won't know who won The Bachelor, for instance. But how does that really affect your journey towards a better life? The significant news, the things that truly matter, will reach you eventually. You'll swiftly realize that the rest is entirely dispensable. I've lived without TV for nearly 15 years, and I don't feel like a mindless zombie. The second significant criticism comes from those who argue that binge-watching or scrolling through social media is a form of entertainment, a pastime. Fair enough, but it should be your choice for the duration you want, not because you felt compelled to binge-watch at 3 in the morning. How do you want to spend your time on this planet? Why not embrace cooler, more active hobbies? Playing soccer beats watching it. Traveling trumps observing others travel. There are numerous active pursuits that make you the protagonist in your life, not merely a spectator in someone else's dream. Your small accomplishments hold more value than someone else's grand achievements. By consistently practicing these habits, you'll become adept at recognizing that a substantial portion of the needs you thought you had were just constructs of a mind influenced by advertisements. If the mind created these needs, it can also dismantle them. You just need to be mindful and release them. If you're still not convinced to embark on these 3 steps, remember, everything is reversible. I suggest giving the information diet a try for 30 days and observing how your quality of life improves or declines. If, after testing it, You conclude it's not the best fit for you, feel free to revert to your old habits. But don't shy away from trying something new. It's a potent tool for changing various aspects of your life. You just have to be willing to embrace it. Chapter 10. Birds of a Feather Flock Together. Will Rogers said, "If you choose bad company, no one will believe you are anything but bad too." Way back in 1937, Harvard University kicked off this massive study on human health that's still ongoing today. They gathered a bunch of folks, all kinds of people, and basically kept a close eye on their lives, interviews, exams, the whole deal. The big question they were trying to crack was, what's the secret to being healthy? And guess what? The answer is a curveball. It's not all about money, genes, routines, or even diet, as much as you'd expect. The real game changer, your friends. This psychiatrist, George Valiant, a seasoned pro of around 30 years, puts it bluntly. The only thing that matters is your social fitness, your relationships with other people. And here's the wild part. Some brainy sociologists, Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler, connected the dots and found that lots of human behaviors actually spread among friends like they're contagious. I mean, seriously. If someone in your squad packs on some pounds, there's a whopping 45% chance you might follow suit. But wait, there's more. It's not just your pals. Even friends of friends can influence you. If a friend's friend gains some weight, you've got up to a 20% chance of joining the club. And if it happens to your friend's friend's friend, yeah, I know it's a mouthful, the risk drops only to 10%. It's like social life has its own kind of epidemic. The people we hang out with can practically shape our whole life. Now let's get real about different kinds of relationships. First up, the colleague. You know, that person you interact with because life kind of throws you together. Think school, work, church, or whatever. They might seem like a friend, but it's more of a temporary thing. Once the situation changes, poof, there goes that friendship. Then there's friendship. It's not about circumstances, it's about a solid connection built on ongoing interaction. If you need help, a friend's got your back. But try asking that former colleague, might not hear a peep. Friendship's like a forever thing. It doesn't have an expiry date. But those colleague relationships, they're like the milk in your fridge. Eventually, they've got an expiration date. And those acquaintances, they're neither colleagues nor full-on friends. They're folks with a shared interest, part of a network where we swap info, content, or even services because of common ground. Family, they're a whole different ballgame. They can be contacts, colleagues, or even friends. But hey, family's family. That's a whole different level of ties. Each and every one. Once we've got a grip on these 4 types of relationships, we can dodge a ton of unnecessary drama. Do you know why? Because most of the time, we mess up by thinking that acquaintances, colleagues, and even family are friends. It's setting yourself up for disappointment by expecting something that's not really on the table. It all comes down to awareness, which we've been talking about, a keen sense of where you're at and where you're headed, being able to navigate through it all. Here's the thing. A lot of those folks we label as friends weren't chosen. They just, kind of wandered in and ended up sticking around. You invested your time, so they stayed. But you never stopped to question if they were truly a friend, an acquaintance, or maybe just a colleague. Sometimes you're there for them as a friend, but in reality, they're just a contact. So, when you're picking your friends, you've got to be awake and aware. When you're in that deep sleep, anyone can come waltzing in and mess up your whole place. And if you can't tell who's a friend from who's an acquaintance, how on earth are you supposed to spot the good from the bad in your life? Choosing your friends, my friend, says a lot about who you are. It's like cleaning up a messy house. You've got to start with sorting things out and then go in for the cleanup. First, figure out who's who, then tidy up that social circle of yours. Trust me, it's worth it in the long run. Sorting the wheat from the chaff. There are 2 situations we gotta talk about here. First off, if you're in a spot where you're friendless or just hanging out with a handful of acquaintances, well, it's time to do some self-checking. No one wants to hang out with someone who's all messed up inside, right? It's like trying to cozy up to a grumpy cat, not exactly the most fun hangout. So here's the deal. Work on yourself, build your own value, and see how naturally people will start gravitating towards you. It's not just about getting stuff from others, but giving back, too. You enhance your own worth, and voila, you become a magnet for awesome connections. Later on, I'll recommend a book that can help you dive deeper into this whole relationship building thing. Now the other situation. You're surrounded by a bunch of folks, but you've never really thought about what kind of friendships they are or what they mean in your life. That's like sailing a ship without a map. Pretty risky business, right? It leaves you wide open for letdowns and makes trusting people a whole lot harder. Sometimes you find yourself stuck in some seriously toxic situations just because you've been holding on to these relationships without a second thought. So here's the deal. If you want to flip the script on your life, it's time for a friendship assessment. Pick who you want to keep close and let go of those toxic connections. It's like spring cleaning for your social life. Clear out the clutter, and you'll make space for some awesome new friendships. It's a game changer. And hey, I'll say it one more time for good measure. If you want to switch things up, change your environment. It's not just about tidying up your place. It's about choosing where you hang out and who you hang out with. Picking your friends is like picking the ripest fruit. Separate the good ones from the not-so-good ones. Don't burn bridges. Picture this. A guy pulls up at a gas station, asks the attendant to fill his tank, and suddenly hears a dog howling like there's no tomorrow. Curious, he asks the attendant, "Is that your dog?" The guy nods and explains, "Yeah, he's mine." "Tell me what's up with the dog. Is he all right?" "You know what? He's sitting on a nail," he says. The attendant takes a closer look and sees the dog isn't tied up or anything. He says to the guy all puzzled, "But then why doesn't he get up and move? He must not be hurt enough to get on his feet and move, huh?" So here's the thing. That dog's in pain, but not enough to actually do something about it. And you know what? That's kind of like us sometimes, sticking around with folks who bring nothing but trouble. We've got this weird thing going called the sunk cost fallacy, making us hold on to things just because we've invested so much in them. You know those friends stuck in crummy relationships, pouring everything into something that's clearly not working out? That's the sunk cost fallacy at play. It's a human glitch, really. We love to seem consistent and avoid admitting we've changed our minds. Quitting a project halfway through? That's a big old contradiction, and our brains hate that. So, we push through, even when we know it's a lost cause, just to avoid admitting we were wrong. Sound familiar? Letting go of those lifelong pals or troubled relatives? Yeah, that's tough. We downplay their issues to justify keeping them around, even when they're a total headache. The sunk cost fallacy messes with our heads big time. Look, sometimes it's okay to cut loose. You don't need to wait until that nail of bad friendship is driving you nuts. Charles Bukowski put it nicely. He said, if folks are wasting your time and not adding anything, it's okay to show them the door. Some people are just dull, and tolerating them doesn't make you a saint. It just makes you duller. Now, not everyone's toxic. Sure, some folks are genuinely harmful, but others have their flaws that might not affect you. Friendship's a mixed bag. You gotta weigh the good with the bad. And hey, you don't always have to nix them from your life. Sometimes they just need to be reclassified as acquaintances, not totally axed. Don't burn those bridges. You might need them again down the line. One big takeaway: analyze who's really a friend and who's just an acquaintance. Friendship starts with strangers or acquaintances. It's like the building blocks of friendship. Some might evolve into real buddies, but it takes time and effort to build those connections. Friendship equals gold. I often compare friendships to gold mining, sifting through tons of dirt to find that precious nugget. And hey, this book isn't about making friends 101. It's about sifting through your pals and cutting loose the dead weight. Navigating friendships can be pretty tricky, right? Here's the thing. Sort and cut out those friends. Ditch the ones who don't add value. It's a game changer. Here's a weird idea I came across. Think about your salary divided by hours worked. Like if you're making $20 an hour, think twice before splurging $600. Is that new thing really worth almost 4 days of your work? Sometimes the effort is worth it, but other times, not so much. Now, apply that logic to people. Would you invest $20 in someone? If not, why spend an hour of your life with them? Time's precious, my friend. Don't let it slip away just because you can't say no, or because your life is crowded with people who kind of just showed up. Friendship's an investment. You want a successful and happy life? You got to invest quality time in people. It's like choosing between high-quality food and junk. If you see friendship as an expense, you're going for the fast, cheap option that doesn't really nourish your soul. Think about it like food. Cheap, quick food, junk. But invest a bit more time and effort, your body and friendships will thank you. Real friendships need serious investment, and if you don't choose who to invest in, your chances of finding those gems decrease. Now, my approach varies based on how close I am to someone. I believe in reciprocity. Everyone gets what they give. Are we giving, receiving, or stuck in a loop of complaints? Are we supporting each other's dreams or constantly under pressure to meet expectations? It's all about observation and reflection. Are we treating someone differently than how they treat us? Imbalanced relationships aren't healthy or fair. Time to reassess and act in a way that benefits everyone involved. Ever notice how we only value a friendship when it's gone? Sometimes we take folks for granted until they step back and we realize their absence. Here's a start. Grab a piece of paper or your phone and make a table. It's time to sort out those friendships. On this table, you're going to have, 5 columns. The first one, name. The second one, friendship rating. The third one, energy expenditure. The fourth one, category. And the fifth one, action. First things first, jot down the people you genuinely connect with. Not your long list of Instagram followers, but the real players in your life, including your online buddies. Make a neat list of all these awesome peeps, one after the other. Now, take some quality time to evaluate each person. This step is gold. Rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. Why is someone a perfect 10? Are they just a good chat, or someone who's got your back? Sometimes the real friends aren't the flashiest. They're the ones who'd come to your rescue at 3 a.m. Friendship's personal, you know? There's an emotional factor at play here, so be real with yourself. Just because someone's friendly doesn't mean they're a true blue friend. Next, figure out the balance between what you give and what you get from each friendship. Maybe you're giving a 2 but getting an 8 in return. Hello, underrated friend. Or you're investing an 8, but the other person's barely throwing in a 2. These could be potential friends. You've just scratched the surface. In the third column, slot them into friend, colleague, or acquaintance territory. Once you've filled out the table, play the sorting game. Arrange the list from lowest to highest ratings. Pay attention to the ends of the list, especially those where you're investing more than you're getting back. These are the energy vampires sucking you dry. As you dissect this list, you might realize you've got a bunch of so-so friends and only a few high flyers. This could nudge you to rethink. Are you expecting too much, hanging on to the wrong folks, or maybe just not putting in enough effort for those good connections? Friendship's unique based on your values and vibes. I can't hand you a list of who to keep, but can I say this analysis? Crucial. Time to tidy up your social circle. The change you're aiming for, it's hiding in your social life. We've got limited energy, bud. If you're pouring it into the wrong crowd, you'll run dry for the ones who truly matter. And hey, choosing friends is like choosing parties. If you waste your mojo on the wrong crowd, you'll miss out on the ones you truly vibe with. Remember, sometimes it's not about cutting off a friend, it's about reshaping their role. And that's why this analysis is key. Your friends have this sneaky power to shape your life, and shifting friends can be a game changer. To learn more about managing your connections, I recommend Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, and Other Secrets to Building Relationships. Alexander Scaldeferi says, sometimes you need to burn bridges so that the crazies don't catch up to you, but be careful not to burn the ones that connect you to those who truly care about you. Chapter 11. Mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. Ever heard of the morning miracle or the 5 o'clock club? It's a technique by Hal Elrod laid out in his book. Followers rise before the sun, get moving, hydrate, endure a cold shower, read, write, plan, meditate, and then dive into their day. Sounds like the ultimate routine, a productivity hack, right? Everyone who reads the book falls for the ideas. I was hooked myself. We barely shut the book before setting the alarm for a 5 a.m. wake-up call. Success, here I come. But the next day, reality hits. It's not as smooth as it sounded. You try to bargain with your own laziness, debating if leaving that cozy bed is worth it. Yet somehow you manage to drag yourself up and stick to this newfound routine. The initial days go well until life throws curveballs, dinner with friends, an all-night project, an out-of-town commitment. Suddenly it all crumbles. Waking up late one day, skipping steps the next, eventually abandoning the method altogether. You know what happens besides ditching the routine? You feel guilty for breaking your commitment to yourself, ending up worse off than before you started. It's because our desperate longing for change blinds us to any solution other than swinging from one extreme to the next. Trust me, that won't cut it. Our minds crave magic formulas and miraculous rituals while sidelining the small, simple, effective things that truly work. This cycle, trying magic tricks and failing, repeats itself in various aspects of life. The gym, diets, quitting smoking, reading more, and countless others. It familiarizes you with defeat, making you believe the lies you tell yourself. The more you go through this, the deeper it embeds in your mind that you'll fail again and again and again. You get comfortable with the chaos. Our brains are way more intricate than that, as this book tirelessly proves. Sleep needs differ. Concentration peaks at various times. Hunger strikes at odd hours. Even the urge for a number 2 is individual. Not even a nutritionist's diet fits everyone. Do you really think that what works for your neighbor will work for you, young Padawan? I'm not just here to say that other people's methods flop, because, hey, you might argue that my methods could be just as inefficient. What I'm saying is, you've got to look inward to figure out what clicks for you. Hence, the method I'm about to dive into is yours, not mine. And that method is meditation. You've probably heard about meditation, right? When you think of it, you might picture a monk chilling on a rock chanting, Om. But guess what? There are over 15 different ways to meditate, and we use the term as a catch-all for mindfulness exercises. Just like there are tons of workout styles, it's the same deal here. One technique involves trying to clear your mind, while another focuses on one thing until you reach some kind of conclusion. Then there are methods that include making sounds or specific movements. Here, let's chat about a technique backed by scientific studies, especially those from the universities of Massachusetts and Oxford. We'll cover a bit of what's in the book Mindfulness, How to Find Peace in a Frantic World by J. Mark G. Williams. Mindfulness isn't about religion. It's about honing your focus. It's like a mental workout that got misunderstood because it got slapped with the label meditation. Sure, many folks weave meditation into their religious practices, but the technique I'm talking about is science-approved. It's straight-up mental training. You don't have to sit cross-legged like they show on TV. You can meditate while doing a handstand if that's what you like, and still nail it. Oh, and forget the idea that you need hours for this. You can do it in 15 minutes. But here's the thing. It takes patience and sticking with it because it's no quick fix. Myths and legends. They've taught you to be smart, but did anyone encourage you to amp up your awareness? Mindfulness, or paying full-on attention, has been proven as the ultimate way to boost that awareness. Meditation isn't some mind-boggling rocket science, and it's not about success or failure. It's a process. Even if you grapple with it, you'll still unearth some gold about how your mind ticks and score some nifty psychological perks. Let's bust a myth here. Meditation won't turn you into a numb robot, nor will it sprinkle you with relentless positivity or make you accept nonsense. Instead, it's like getting a clearer lens to view the world, handing you tools to make shrewder calls and tweak what needs tweaking. Consider it your way of tackling those pesky compulsions. Imagine hitting a level where you do what's right, where you're more in the driver's seat, not just at the mercy of your thoughts and habits. Treat meditation like a gym session for the conscious part of your brain. In the earlier chapters, we dug into our pile of habits and saw how we're basically on autopilot mode. The only way to break free? Pumping up that awareness. It's pretty much the key to a life overhaul, to actually waking up and feeling alive in your own story. Sure, a major life crisis might jolt you awake, but trust me, it's way cooler to gather these life-changing habits and know how now, before life decides to shake things up, especially in our hyper-stimulated world. The road ahead? Long, slow, and simple, but oh so reliable and powerful. So forget the change your life in 21 days spiel, 'cause truth be told, nothing works that way. Mindfulness. You can't just slam the brakes on a stream of gloomy memories, those mean inner voices, and all those negative thoughts. But guess what? You can dodge the junk that usually tags along with these thoughts. Remember how we talked about not letting that vicious cycle spiral you down into negativity? That's the game plan. To pull that off, you've got to shake up how you relate to yourself and the world. Taking a moment to ponder stuff isn't just about thinking. It's about realizing you're doing the thinking. That's where mindfulness swoops in. It lets you view the world from a distance, not getting hijacked by your thoughts, feelings, or the emotional roller coaster. Think of it like standing on a tall mountain where you can see miles and miles around you. That's the deal. Seeing things from a bird's eye view. Pure awareness? It's beyond thoughts. It's like pressing mute on that endless mental chatter and dialing down your knee-jerk reactions and emotions. It's about seeing the world with fresh eyes, bringing back a sense of peace to your life. It's not just a change in perspective, it's rewiring your brain to stop overthinking, overanalyzing, and overjudging everything. With mindfulness, you can revamp your mental landscape, no matter what chaos is happening outside. It's seeing the world for what it is, not what you expect it to be. Say goodbye to relying on outside stuff for happiness and balance. It's like reclaiming the remote control of your life. Sure, these ideas might sound a bit fuzzy at first. They're the type you've got to experience to really get. But trust me, the perks of mindfulness are solid. I mean, they're so good you can even see the brain rewiring itself in those fancy brain scans. Cool, right? Small defense of the autopilot mode. Autopilot isn't the enemy here, folks. In reality, it's often a pretty decent assistant. I mean, seriously, there's this idea floating around that you should be tuned in 100% of the time. That's total nonsense. It's a drain on your energy, and let's face it, very few, if any, can pull that off. Think of your attention span like this. It's limited, and you can't juggle a gazillion things at once. For instance, when you're driving, you gotta focus on steering, while the shifting gears and hitting the gas pedal go into autopilot. Now, if you start paying attention to every tiny detail, your butt on the seat, each gear shift, and the color of the sky, bam, you're gonna crash, or worse, mow someone down. Autopilot, it's actually one of your best tools, and I'll say it again, it's not the enemy. Trouble only happens when you let it take over everything. Heck, even choosing what goes on autopilot becomes autopilot itself, making you totally unaware all the time. That's the real issue. Another problem? When autopilot tries to handle stuff it's not equipped for, like trying to fix an uncomfortable emotion. That's when you gotta switch gears and get mindful. When you're cruising on autopilot, your mind cooks up its own drama, thoughts and mental scenes, not the real thing. You might start mistaking the stuff in your head, which, let's be real, is often nonsense, for reality. And these thoughts, they might seem logical, but they're not reality. For instance, if you're worried about your paycheck lasting until month end, well, that's a legit concern in the real world. But when stress hits, your mind's waterworks starts spilling everywhere. You start believing the mess in your head as gospel truth. Thoughts like, I'll lose it if things keep up like this. Pump the brakes. They're not true, no matter how much your brain insists. And guess what happens next? Your mood takes a nosedive. You start believing you're weak, worthless, the whole shebang. And once you start trusting those thoughts, you're in for a whirlwind. You push harder, ignore your body's SOS signals, and brush off friends and family who care. Those negative thoughts, they're not just your assistants. They become the big bad boss ruling your life, strict and merciless. Full attention. Mindfulness? It's like putting thoughts in their place. They're just thoughts. They're like brain events, not the real deal. They might matter, but they're not you or reality. It's like your mind's own storytelling about you and the world. Just grasping this idea can cut down on the endless worrying and overthinking, giving you a clearer view of the path ahead. Mindfulness meditation, it's like a gentle nudge from an alarm clock, reminding you when you're overthinking or stressing out. It's a signal that says, hey, you've got options, even when things seem rough. When you're mindful, you get that your thoughts and feelings aren't the boss of you. You take charge, not the other way around. No need to compare yourself to others or measure your life against some idealized past or future. And hey, that meeting comment? No need to lose sleep over it. Think of mindfulness as a wake-up call for your senses. It starts surfacing naturally when you make time for it. Hands down, meditation's one of the best ways to clear out those emotional hurdles. It's like saying to get in shape, you've got to do some workouts. Everyone understands that, right? Well, mindfulness is the workout for your consciousness. It's today's go-to tool for getting more present and aware. I'm not diving into teaching mindfulness here because, well, it's a whole big deal, and there's an awesome book that does it justice. It's called Mindfulness, How to Find Peace in a Frantic World by J. Mark G. Williams. Seriously, that book's got you covered with exercises and all. My aim was to show that after tidying up your life, mindfulness is the best way for dealing with your inner battles. But hey, trying to meditate when your life's in chaos, not going to work. Sort that out first. Focus your energy there. Once things are in order, grab that book, follow its 8-week plan, and watch your life transform. Remember, don't get ahead of yourself. Putting the cart before the horse? Not the way to go. So yeah, if you're after positive change, Mindfulness, How to Find Peace in a Frantic World is your guidebook. Trust me, it's a game changer. Chapter 12, The Deceptive Advertisement of a Balanced Life. Picture this, a balanced life, this grand utopia everyone chases after. It's this notion of having it all perfectly aligned, your career, relationships, health, and more. It's a goal painted in golden hues. But the reality, well, it's a different story, a challenging one at that. When folks fixate on this ideal, aiming to make it their life's purpose, it often leads to a blend of frustration, especially in our social media-driven world where everyone's life seems like a flawless movie with rose-tinted filters. It's a dangerous game, leaving people feeling inadequate because, truthfully, no one truly achieves that mythical balance. No one's a wizard at everything. Now, is there no one out there with a balanced life? It's not that it's 100% impossible, but let's face it, it's about as common as finding a unicorn. Even if someone manages to pull it off for a while, how long does that really last? It often depends on a rare stroke of luck, a sprinkle of magic in life, and someone with an extraordinary nature. It's not exactly the reality for most of us. Professor Luis Alberto Hans conducted a study with psychology students, a kind of recipe book for a balanced life, according to the experts. Picture this. Every aspect was counted, from how long you should brush your teeth, as per dentists, to the minute spent basking in the sun, as per dermatologists, and of course the time dedicated to family and relationships, as per family therapists. They added everything together, and guess what? The basics alone exceeded 48 hours a day. Yep, you heard that right. In a day with no sleep, you'd need over 48 hours to check off everything on that list. But last I checked, a day only has 24 hours. The reality? Very few, a teeny tiny fraction of people have this mythical balanced life. The ones with a lovely family, with great careers, top-notch intelligence, boundless energy, and genuine happiness. It's the unicorn of our era. Now here's the thing. Why put yourself through the ringer chasing something that's as elusive as a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow? I'm not saying don't give your best shot at each aspect of life, but ease up on the pressure of excelling all the time, everywhere. Don't kick yourself for not having that perfectly balanced life. It's like chasing a mirage. You'll exhaust yourself for something that's just not quite real. So, do your thing and aim high, but remember, perfect balance might just be a tad overrated. Hit the brakes. Life operates on a seesaw, a perpetual swing between different facets. Sometimes you're acing it at work, but perhaps the friend or parent side might need a little TLC. There are moments when you're a rock star parent, excelling at home, yet juggling work might take a backseat. It's a dance of highs and lows, and let's face it, life's fairness is about as reliable as a coin toss. Some folks luck out with intelligence, beauty, wealth, and a heavenly environment. Others? Well, life seems to have missed the memo on kindness. So how do you navigate this roller coaster ride? In the tangible world, the more balls you try to juggle perfectly, the tougher it gets. The secret? Declutter what doesn't matter much to you. Now, I'm not here to dictate what's vital in your life. For some, it's family. For others, it's career or exploration. Within each arena, have an inkling of what success looks like. Channel your focus there, where you can achieve excellence. If you spread yourself too thin, the odds of doing everything poorly skyrocket, leaving you feeling like life's a bit mediocre. Target what genuinely matters. Let go of that mirage of a perfectly balanced life where you're a shining star at everything. Start by tidying up your internal mess. Get to know yourself better. It helps in discerning what you can afford to overlook and which life cycle you're cruising in. Tailor your actions accordingly. When you're knee-deep in parenting a toddler, that's your prime focus. Later, a work project might demand those extra hours, and you'll shift gears accordingly. But hold on, not striving for balance doesn't mean you randomly swing attention anywhere. Focus on the vital aspects of life, like health, relationships, finances. Those are non-negotiables. Others? Well, you get to pick. This ebb and flow, it thrives on consciousness and observation. That light bulb moment when you go, whoops, I'm putting in too many hours at the office. Time to redirect focus to family. Or the realization that your professional skills could use a bit of dusting off. Some aspects will demand more time, and for some, a radical overhaul might be due, whether it's health, finances, or anything else that rings crucial to you and your journey. The ideal world. It's like trying to manage your finances by carefully tracking every expense on a spreadsheet. But then, a spontaneous weekend trip pops up, and suddenly, spreadsheets and financial control are the last things on your mind. The distractions make you forget to jot down any expenses, and what began as a brief getaway extends into multiple days until that initial goal of financial control slips away entirely. Similar to when you kick off a diet with grand plans, boasting about the pounds you'll shed and envisioning yourself in clothes you've long forgotten. Then, someone invites you to a party and all bets are off. Every forbidden treat becomes fair game, and you almost smuggle sweets from the party for breakfast the next day. Your resolve weakens, and the thought of starting the diet next week becomes the comforting fallback. It's classic self-sabotage, right? But preventing these slips from spiraling into a full derailment of your progress requires a shift in perspective on habit change. The problem isn't the slip itself, it's our minds concocting unrealistic fantasies of how smooth the habit-changing process will be. For instance, in striving for financial control, we expect to flawlessly budget without mistakes, picturing our finances magically organized, leading to instant wealth. On diets, we imagine perfect eating habits from day one, expecting rapid transformation into healthy icons bursting with vitality. Yet reality isn't so compliant. Daily life is far more complex than our idealized visions. This disparity between expectations and reality sets us up for frustration and an inevitable "screw it" reaction. Here's the truth: change doesn't follow our ideal scripts. No matter how perfect the plan seems, reality always throws curveballs. Our fantasies remain just that, fantasies. Embracing this reality means accepting that slips will happen, and that's okay. Forget the pursuit of perfection. It's about flexibility. When you stray from your path, it shouldn't be the reason to quit. It's about adapting, recalibrating, and moving forward without tossing away all the progress you've made so far. Enjoy the journey. Remember that thing you once struggled with, but eventually you mastered it? Think about that process. It wasn't easy, right? But now, looking back, you feel proud of how far you've come. That mindset, cherishing the whole journey, even the mess-ups and detours, that's the key. It's not a once-in-a-while thing. It's about living that mindset every day. Instead of always going, "Screw it," when things get tough, stay open to the whole change process. Figure out why you slipped up and learn from it. Understand that slipping up is normal when you're trying to make progress. Because here's the thing. If everything's too chill, you might not be pushing yourself enough. Just remember, if you're doing everything effortlessly, maybe you're in the wrong class. Embrace the challenges, enjoy the ride, and keep moving forward. Ditching the all-or-nothing mentality. All in or bust. No pain, no gain. Go big or go home. We've all heard these lines. They get us pumped up, right? They make us feel like we're going to conquer the world and chase our dreams fearlessly. But hey, let's back up a second. In all or nothing, guess what? Nothing is still an option. And guess what we tend to pick when we hit a snag? Nothing. Getting to all is awesome, but getting stuck at nothing, not so cool. Especially when it comes to steering your own ship. Settling for nothing just doesn't cut it. It's like slamming the brakes on progress, growth, everything. Here's what you need to know. Life's full of in-betweens, but we forget that. Slip-ups? They're part of the game. But when they happen, we often ditch the middle ground and go for nothing, forgetting there's a whole spectrum between all and nothing for us to explore and grow in. Let's get real here. Every habit you've got, it started small, right? Aristotle knew this stuff ages ago, but we're still falling for it. See, the big mistake is thinking all is the only way to go, and honestly, that's a lie. Imagine this, just a kilometer jog or a short daily write-up. Over a year, that's 8 marathons or a book. Boom! Easy, right? Those little things can add up to big achievements in no time. So why is the all-or-nothing gig such nonsense? Well, when you're gung-ho on 100% perfection, you pile on a ton of pressure. But here's the kicker. Pressure isn't always the best motivator. It's stress city. And under stress, we fall back on our trusty old habits. They're great, but not for change. Evolution's about change, but if you're chasing progress under pressure, you'll stick to what you know best, the same old routines. And that means zero change. Your brain links the change plan to suffering, so you avoid it. Thinking all or nothing cranks up the pressure to be flawless, and guess what? Your brain goes on autopilot, avoid mistakes, get out of the stress zone, and fast. But autopilot isn't enough for change. Big achievements better than the small ones? It might sound like a no-brainer. Big wins seem better than small ones. But hold up. When it comes to personal growth, there's a sneaky little secret. It's not just about those flashy triumphs. It's about the everyday grind, the consistent wins that build the backbone of our lives. Consistency? That's the magic word for success. Think about it. Tiny actions you do every day, they're gold. They build habits that shape your life more than those occasional grand slams. Sure, if you're the superhero who's always nailing those big accomplishments, kudos to you! But let's face it, not many of us live in that realm. Consistency, that's the real game changer in this story. It's the steady stream of small wins that add up to the big victory. That's the secret. As Vincent van Gogh said, great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things done consistently. The mindset you should adopt. Let's review the main topics that I've discussed in order to wrap up this thought. 1. Wanting everything is sometimes pointless. Wanting to do it all can seem like the ultimate goal, but sometimes it's a dead-end street. Those big plans you keep aiming for, they're just empty dreams if they don't actually push you forward or help you grow. Sure, you might preach the go big or go home mantra, but if those big dreams stay in your head and never see daylight, what's the point? It's like having a massive nap, but never taking the first step on a journey. Worse yet, this habit of setting unrealizable goals can slam your confidence. You tell yourself you'll be flawless, but when reality hits and perfection slips away, it's a hit to your self-belief. You end up feeling like a letdown. Next time, you'll start with a mindset drenched in pessimism, already bracing for failure. Tough cycle. 2. A little is better than nothing. Doing something small is way better than sitting on your hands doing nothing. Simple math and life wisdom. If you're all about enjoying the ride, not just the destination, every baby step forward counts just as much as reaching the finish line. When you realize each tiny stride matters, you'll savor every stage. And celebrating these little wins, that's your personal cheer squad for hitting those goals. 3. A little every day is better than a lot in a single day. Consistency over one-off splurges anytime. Dabbling a little each day will transform your life way more than a sudden burst of effort for just one day or a few days, followed by a long slump of nothingness. Daily dabbling gives you the chance to craft a new habit, to master skills with true quality and skill. Bottom line, small, steady efforts beat lofty ambitions that never see the light of day. Chapter 13. Habits and the Little Habits. Somebody once said, facing an elephant-sized obstacle, take it on slice by slice when you're ready to tackle it. You're keen to dive into healthier eating, starting with salads. But veggies don't exactly light up your taste buds. Still, everyone swears by their health benefits, so you dive in headfirst on day one, piling your plate high with every leafy green imaginable. The meal turns into an endurance test, and let's be real, it's not a taste sensation. Odds are, will you stick to this salad spree? Slim to none. Taking such a drastic plunge sends a signal to your brain. It's better to skip meals than torture yourself with rabbit food. It's a massive effort for zero immediate payoffs and zero joy. Cue the self-sabotage. The result? Another item in the failed attempts cabinet, and your brain registers yet another unmet goal. The secret is in the micro-habits. Consistently developing a habit involves setting the bar so low that you can't dodge it or argue against it. This is crucial to prevent your mind from putting up barriers against your efforts. Now, if you're aiming for habits that stick for the long haul, forget about those quick-fix 3-day wonders. Those just lead to more frustration, like those who jump on the morning miracle bandwagon and end up adding another letdown to their list. Let's circle back to the salad scenario for a second. Think simple. What's the easiest green to start with? Lettuce? Okay, picture this. Half a leaf of lettuce with a generous splash of dressing to tone down that veggie taste. Your first go at it might get some pushback from your brain, but once you take a bite, the dressing's the star, not the lettuce, and hunger makes acceptance even easier. So you got day one? Great. Now imagine doing this for a month. It becomes so routine that chucking that leaf onto your plate will feel like second nature. Next month, ramp up the leaves and dial down the dressing. Slow and steady, just like Martina de Villa's tune. It's slowly, slowly. Gradual changes keep your mind from freaking out. Eventually, introduce another leaf that's not as repelling. Amp up the dressing again. Eventually, you're chomping on a plate of veggies dressed up nicely. 6 months in, you've got leafy greens down pat. Time to start scaling back the dressing for another 6 months. Fast forward a year and voila! You'll catch yourself savoring a hefty plate of salad, hardly needing any dressing, and guess what? It's a habit for life now. This approach works for anything. Workouts, learning, languages, even something as simple as drinking more water or forming a sleep routine. Remember, lasting change starts small, and it's most effective when it feels good, not like a drag. Make it tiny and enjoyable. Still skeptical about microhabits? Consider sugar intake. Once in a while might sound harmless, but what does that really mean? For some, it's an open invitation to indulge anytime they fancy. Think about these stats. 1 bag of sweet popcorn equals 50 grams of sugar once a week. 1 year equals 2,607 grams per year. 30 years equals 78 kilograms of sugar. Another example, soda equals 27 grams of sugar per cup. 3 cups a day, 81 grams. Over 30 kilograms of sugar in a year. Tiny habits today could snowball into monsters down the road. But on the flip side, cutting a simple habit, like sugar in your coffee, slashes your yearly sugar intake by several kilos. That's the power of small changes over time. You are what you do. You know who you are? You're the sum of all those tiny actions you do. Your quirks, your strengths, none of that's an overnight creation. It's all part of the house built by everyday actions, one brick at a time. Those small, repeated habits, they're the building blocks of your personality, whether they're admirable traits or not-so-great quirks. Sure, big events can shake us up, like the pandemic did for a couple of years. They leave their mark, no doubt. But those massive moments, they're rare, and they don't define us completely. Here's a tip. If you want to get a handle on who you truly are, start by watching what you do every day. That's where the real picture of you emerges. Somebody once said, "You're not the result of major revolutions." You're not going to revolutionize your life overnight. People tend to focus on the nitty-gritty details rather than seeing the bigger picture. It's just easier that way. You know those factory defects? Here's another one, the novelty bias. It's this habit of believing something new is automatically better just because it's, well, new. Those promises of shedding weight in 30 days or becoming a millionaire within a year sound amazing, right? But truth be told, banking on these quick-fix ideas isn't the wisest move. Remember, if you leave a steak unattended and the dog devours it, whose fault is it? Yours! Recognize this bias, but don't let it run your show. It's like not setting the steak out for the dog in the first place. Prevent the impulse from guiding you. Marketers know this quirk and play on it. But let's face it, overnight life makeovers just don't pan out. More people perish from a sedentary lifestyle than airplane accidents. Plane crashes stir up emotions. Sitting on the couch, not so much. We fear flying but not binging on junk food every day. Time to grasp that your brain tends to undervalue the small, yet that's precisely where the real change happens. Your behavior is your powerhouse for change. Consider this. If you worsen by 1% daily, in a year, you're nearly at 0. But improve by 1% daily, you're 38 times better. Small steps have big impacts across the board in life. It's about consistent, smart repetition. Stick to these small changes consistently. You'll see significant transformations over time. It goes both ways, though. Saving money today won't make you a millionaire, just like a burger today won't pack on pounds. But persistently practicing these small acts is where the magic lies. Don't overlook the power of tiny things. Fold a paper 103 times and it's thicker than the observable universe. So here are 2 issues. One is expecting a life revolution overnight, whether it's a weekend course, a new product, or a book promising miracles. The second is underestimating the impact of once in a while. That repeated once in a while, over time, can lead to colossal consequences. The revolution, it rarely happens as a sudden event. Without changing habits, you'll never truly change your life. Don't get swayed by the hype of miraculous transformations or buy into the promise of an overnight life overhaul. Scratch that mythical idea of relying solely on willpower and self-control. They can help curb impulses, but they're not infinite resources. The more you rely on them, the less you'll have in your tank. When it comes to changing habits, it's a battle using self-control. Your brain is all about conserving energy and survival, not exerting self-control. It sabotages your efforts, putting other things first. Let's talk flossing. You might know how to floss, but making it a solid habit? Tricky. Here's how you make it more automatic. Step 1. Pick a dental floss you like at the store. It might seem small, but enjoying the floss can make the process less dreadful. Step 2. Keep that dental floss where you can't miss it, in plain sight next to your toothbrush. Step 3. Cut a piece of floss right after you've put away your toothbrush. Make it a mechanical step in your routine. Step 4. Floss just one tooth. Yes, only one. Keep it super minimal. The idea here is to create the habit, so the effort should be tiny. Step 5. Check yourself in the mirror, give a smile, and relish in the satisfaction of starting a healthy habit. Consider that your reward. Extra tip: if you're up for it in the following days, you can floss more teeth, but think of it as a bonus achievement, not the primary goal. How far does a habit go? A habit isn't just any behavior, it's a deeply ingrained process learned by our brains through repetition. It could be an action, a sequence, or even a ritual. While some habits might start as conscious actions, they often become unconscious as they become automatic. That's the hallmark of a habit, the unconscious repetition. Additionally, habits demand minimal energy because they operate automatically. It's like driving an automatic car. It's way less tiring, right? Habits usually associate with specific situations or moments following a particular sequence. Let's take phone checking, for instance. If you've conditioned yourself to grab your phone whenever you're distracted or zoning out while reading a book, it's become an ingrained habit. We also have unnoticed habits, like finding it hard to say no or not standing up for ourselves in everyday situations. Remember, at the book's start, I emphasized the need to clear out life's clutter to gain awareness. Otherwise, any effort toward improvement will feel like a Herculean task. And when the effort required is immense, it's easier for things to go wrong. If your mind's inundated with desires, thoughts, and compulsions, you won't consciously perceive your habits. You become blind to them, drifting away from your goals. Ignoring this cleanup means struggling against the current and lacking the strength to change. Cleaning up, both physically and mentally, makes life so much simpler. When you clear out the basics, you gain awareness to chart your course. Planning your life or envisioning the future is futile until you've decluttered your mind. It's only then that you start to grasp what genuinely matters and the direction you wish to take. This clarity helps identify which micro-habits to adopt and which detrimental habits to toss. This book isn't about teaching every strategy for changing habits. That would fill volumes. The aim here is to highlight two basic principles. Revolutions don't work, micro-habits do. With a clean slate and consistent micro-habits, you can kickstart transforming your life much sooner than you'd imagine with other methods. Bear in mind, your mind loves the idea of revolutions, heightening the risk of self-sabotage. Consider giving this proposed method a chance. It's so small that it won't demand much from you. That's why its chances of success are real. You'll keep moving forward. Plus, these small victories build robust habits and fuel your perseverance. Don't go to sleep without taking a step toward your dream, no matter how small it is. An extra tip. When you're embarking on a journey of small steps, you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. You can try doing it your way, hit a wall, or take a leaf out of Anthony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power. He talks about making the best chocolate cake in the world. You can either spend years with trial and error, attempting to bake it from scratch and still fall short, or you can opt for a recipe from someone who's already made this cake, or even take a class from that pro. Even if it's not the world's best cake, you'll spend a few hours making the best cake of your life. Following the recipe, even if you've never baked before, will get you similar results. That pastry chef probably spent years perfecting that recipe, saving you the hassle of starting from zero. Similarly, when learning to use dental floss, you could buy 10 types from different brands or models at the store. Alternatively, a Google search for the best dental floss for your teeth type might be helpful. Understanding your teeth type, consulting with your dentist, or researching can make a substantial difference. I even asked a dentist myself, and she shared invaluable advice, teaching me techniques preventing gum injury while flossing. Imagine if I hadn't asked. It could have taken years to discover such a nuanced difference between dental floss types. Here's the crux. Seek help from professionals. They'll guide you with consistency and the most effective methods. Quick fixes often cost a lot and seldom deliver. The key tip here is, take things slowly to go far, but ensure you're on the right track by seeking expert guidance along the way. Chapter 14. Life is made of packages. An anonymous person once said, "Every person we meet, every challenge we face, and every moment we live are small packages that make up our life." Life's a curious journey, often composed of packages. Yep, packages. But why packages, you ask? Well, consider your choices. To marry or stay single, embark on a public service career or dive into entrepreneurship, city living or countryside tranquility, pizza or salad, kids or no kids, even the choice of a vacation destination. These represent packages in your life. And with each choice, the alternative option lingers, nudging your doubts. What if I had picked differently? How different would things be? Take living in the countryside versus the bustling capital. Each has distinct perks. Countryside living offers fresher air, less traffic, enhanced security, and lower living costs. Yet city life boasts more entertainment, diverse services, top-tier restaurants, and better schooling options. Notice, these are different packages. You can't cherry-pick the best parts from each. Opt for the small town and you miss out on the city's perks. Choose marriage and you can't retain the freedom of singlehood. The choices you make come bundled with their unique benefits and limitations. Even transitioning from one relationship to another brings new positives, but also introduces fresh challenges, some that didn't exist in the prior relationship. The pursuit of a perfect relationship often ends in vain because every relationship is a package, a mix of good and, well, not so good things. It's akin to what we discussed earlier about friendships. Every individual is a package of flaws and strengths. When choosing, it's about weighing whether the positives outweigh the negatives. Are they a positive addition to your life or a potential negative? Sometimes a person might uplift you but bring negativity to another, and vice versa. Think about math. 1 + 1 equals 2. 1 minus 1 equals 0. But -1 minus 1 equals -2. Goes way down. Remember how that messed with your mind in algebra class? Don't let it mess with your life. Associating with a negative person in marriage or friendship might mean subtraction from your life, no added value, leading to stagnation, or even worse, a negative impact. Life is a series of packages, none perfect. You might own a Ferrari, but it's useless on dirt roads. So first things first, accept that life consists of packages. Failure to accept this turns life into a disarray of torment. Every choice comes with a sacrifice. Opt for one, leave thousands behind. It's unrealistic to cherry-pick only the positives from every decision. Understand that you're picking the pain you're more willing to bear. The ache of hitting the gym or the discomfort of outgrowing your clothes, choose your discomfort. Look beyond isolated benefits. Evaluate the sum of advantages and disadvantages in each package to make informed choices. For instance, skipping a night out with friends for study means sacrificing immediate fun for future priorities. If it's a wise choice, it'll pave the way for a rewarding job, affording you the means to enjoy outings later. Embracing life's packages makes it simpler to cope and notice what's missing. This perspective eases the weight of every decision. Accepting the pains bundled with each choice becomes easier when you grasp that every package has its imperfections, but also contributes positively to your life. Life is a series of packages, and every choice carries a bit of loss. The search for the perfect package. So there's this girl who asked Gary Vaynerchuk whether she should go to college or dive into entrepreneurship for a more secure life. His reply completely shifted my perspective. He simply said, choose a life and live it. Here's the thing, folks. A degree isn't as secure as you might think. Plus, you're never going to know how things would have turned out if you picked the other path. Picture this. You skip college, start a business, and it skyrockets, making millions. But one day you're in a work meeting, take a flight, and boom, plane crash. Could you predict that? We overthink stuff, but truth is, there's no perfect package. You won't ever know the perfect choice. So just make a call and go for it. If it works, yay! If it doesn't, tweak things. Everyone thinks they can nail the perfect decision, but that's a fantasy. There's only the life you pick. So own it and be happy. Take Michael Jordan. When asked if he gets nervous shooting, he said, I either make it or miss it. If I make it, awesome. If I miss, cool, I'll train harder next time. Jordan isn't passive, he just gets it. You can't control success, but he can control hustle and training. Another example, you plan a beach day, but out of nowhere, rain pours. No way you control that. Now you can either sulk or switch it up. Play cards, check out the city spots, you name it. You can't control the weather, but you sure can change the situation. Bottom line, however much you plan, results aren't entirely in your control. You won't purposely pick something bad, but predicting the future? Nope. Pick the best with the info you've got today and roll with it, being happy. 2 cool tricks for decision-making. One's called controlled diving. Set a deadline to gather info, then make the call. Once decided, no looking back. Even works for stuff like buying a phone. Research 5 hours, pick one, and let it be. Else, you'll be forever unsure, regretting the new model that dropped after you bought yours. Another trick? Flip a coin for 2 choices. Depending on how you feel about the result, there's your decision. Say beach or mountain vacay. Coin says mountain, but your heart sinks. Beach it is. Here's the deal. Perfect is the enemy of the good. Stop seeking the perfect choice, because you'll only know after you decide. Don't stress over it. If it feels good, it's good enough. Focus less on perfection. It messes with your decision-making mojo. Goals you can't control? Like saying, I'll be happy if I make 20 grand a month. That's like betting on no rain tomorrow. Can't guarantee that stuff. Imagine aiming for a promotion. Focus on the process, not the outcome. You'll become better at your job, at peace, even if the promotion doesn't happen. Check out successful people's stories. They're into the journey. Focusing just on the result drains energy and messes up your vibe. Goals? Yeah, but focus on the ride, not the destination. Get this through your head. Focusing on the process helps, even in things you can't control. You can't change the world solo, but you still can be active and fight for a cause within your reach. Loving the process is tough, right? Well, make enjoying the process better than the result. Micro habits, my friend. Losing 10 kilos? Cool, but celebrate daily for reading a page or passing up on sweets after lunch. Fake it if needed. Celebrate those little wins. Positive vibes make you dig what you're doing. So bottom line, celebrate those small victories in life. Make loving the process your jam. There's no therapy for victims. Doctora Ana Claudia Quintana Arantes, a medical specialist in aging and a writer, shares something eye-opening about patients with a lot of resentment. Some cancer patients walk into her office saying, "Doc, I've eaten right, exercised, cared about my health, lived a quality life. What was the point?" And then she hits them with a question. How long have you had cancer? Turns out, some have battled cancer for years, even the tough types. She follows up with a truth bomb. Your survival is partly because you did everything as advised. Without that, things might have been worse, maybe even life-threatening. Even though you can't control results, those small daily actions seriously up your odds of doing well. It's worth it. Pour your heart into what you love, body and soul. Doing the right thing doesn't always ensure success, but skipping it is a guaranteed path to failure. Conclusion. You're not special. If you'll allow me, I'm going to quote myself again. Not being special doesn't mean you're not unique. Daniel Linares. All right, picture this. You're out there in the middle of nowhere, waking up before the crack of dawn just to catch a packed, smelly bus to work. Meanwhile, some of your colleagues live a stone's throw away, thanks to their trust funds. You're scraping to make ends meet, but then you see some kid on the internet making your yearly salary in a week. You're busting your gut to keep those pounds off while a bunch of people online are flaunting their perfect bods. Now, you're not special. Nope, not you. Despite all the love from your parents, the jokes, and the stuff you've been through, sorry to burst the bubble, but you're not some unicorn. You've probably heard this line about everyone being special, having some magic talent, but that's a load of baloney. Not everyone's got that special spark. Even if you're good at something, it doesn't automatically make you special. That university or job doesn't make you special. Looking good or being popular? Nope, still not special. You're just 1 in 7 billion, and if you drop dead today, the world keeps spinning. It's a harsh truth. Life's not fair. Not by a long shot. You'll quickly notice that you've been dealt a pretty lousy hand in the game of life. And sometimes, even if you hustle harder than anyone, that disadvantage might not budge. Life doesn't give a hoot about you. Embrace that reality. The sooner you internalize this, the better. Most of our lives, tough as nails, brutally unfair. Unless you hit the jackpot at birth with tons of opportunities, you're in for a bumpy ride. You'll battle hunger, put up with noisy spots to catch some shut-eye, and if you're in a bustling city, good luck squeezing into that jam-packed bus. And guess what? You're not alone in this struggle. Everyone's dealing with their slice of this unfair pie. You'll be waking up earlier, busting your tail more, getting treated worse, and often getting zilch recognition. That's the reality slapping you in the face. Tough, unfair, and sometimes downright brutal. The world as it is. All right, let me bottom line this. Given all this mess, what's your move? Are you going to play the blame game, get steamed up, envy others, and just use this messed up reality as an excuse to do zip about it? Will you drown your sorrows in a bottle or a constant stream of drugs to escape the harsh truth? Blame the government, society, or those folks who seem to have it all. I hate to break it to you, but that won't fix your problems. I remember watching these backpacker live streams, and this solo-traveling gal dropped some truth bombs that stuck with me. She said, "I don't try to change the world. I accept it as it is." She acknowledged how the world's unfair and a risky place, especially for women. She didn't fight it, but played smart. She took precautions, stayed aware, and went about her travels. Challenging reality won't change it. It'll just put your neck on the line. Living within the rules while advocating for change, that's how she rolled. Accept that life's a tough cookie. If you're flipping through this book expecting a celebrity-like life, turn off that TV and ditch those sources feeding you that fairy tale. The stuff they show, it's a big, fat lie, designed to make you dream big and buy even bigger. Admit it, you weren't born with a silver spoon. You're just another Brazilian or American or British person or whoever in the hustle. But hey, think about it. You could have landed smack in the middle of a war zone or an oppressive regime. Count your blessings. There's always something to be grateful for if you look closely. Heads up, those celebrities with fame and cash, they've got their struggles too. Some are lonely, others missed out on love, and some live hollow lives. We only see their shiny stage, not the messy reality they're dealing with. So, it's time to look in the mirror and say, I accept my life. Not to settle, but to acknowledge where you stand. Until you accept it, things won't change. Life's not about perfection. It's about making the imperfect awesome. Forget the social media facade. It's as fake as it gets. It's like joining a soccer game and deciding you can play with your hands. It's not how the game goes, and you'll get benched. Embrace the game as it is. Play by the rules, and still make it fun. Once you accept your life and yourself, magic happens. This book, it's all about that. Accept who you are now to figure out who you'll be. And to do that, cut off everything that's weighing you down. That means chucking out the TV, the mindless internet scrolls, and the victim mindset. Stop chewing on stuff that's bad for your health. Ditch those toxic relationships that suck the joy out of your life. Your life will only change when you declutter the mess in it. The world might be a mess, but don't make yourself the problem. Don't try to mask the mess. Instead, know who you are, your baggage, your quirks. Don't blindly follow any internet guru. There's tons of trash out there. Know where you stand before picking a path. The self-awareness industry, it's like fast food. Looks good, quick to get, but it's doing more harm than good. There are good programs out there, but first, you gotta know where you're starting from to know where to go. The thing is, humans are all different. We're a mixed bag of quirks and traits. Everyone wants to be happy, but the recipe for that happiness is unique to each of us. We've got to stop chasing others' happiness, copying their formulas. When you don't know who you are, you'll end up with the wrong recipe and a belly full of frustration. Foot binding. Ever heard of lotus feet or foot binding? It was a thing in China back in the day. They thought tiny feet were beautiful. So, they stunted girls' foot growth, keeping their feet as small as 8 to 10 centimeters, just small enough to fit in your hand. They'd break and wrap the feet of little girls to make them grow in that specific shape. Now, that might sound utterly horrific, right? But think about today's world. Identical eyebrows, bodies cloned from some beauty standard, and we're even tweaking our faces to fit a certain look. People are dying or mutilating themselves for the so-called perfect bod. And that's just what meets the eye. The same thing's happening inside our heads, too. Ever notice those self-improvement courses? They're not there to boost your ego. They're there to make you feel like you're not good enough. It's all about pushing for more, more, more! Like buying every new phone that hits the market. At least a new phone serves a purpose. But in self-help land, You often get stuck in strategies that just don't fit you, wasting time, feeling worse for not ticking those boxes of success. It's like collecting yet another failure trophy. Baz Luhrmann wrote in To Wear Sunscreen, "Don't read beauty magazines. They will only make you feel ugly." Singularity. So humans are like this amazing mixtape of experiences, traits, and quirks that make each one of us a unique masterpiece. Just like different materials with their own perks and flaws, people too come in their own versions of gold, silver, wood, or clay bricks. It's the old Mies van der Rohe spiel. Understanding the material is key for a killer design, and it goes for people too. But the world constantly pushes this idea that you're gold. You know, the whole, you can be rich, famous, have it all jazz. You get convinced, buy into courses and trainings that promise to unleash your inner gold mine. The trouble is, after all that, you're covered in layers of desires and thoughts that aren't even yours. You might have taken a "which Harry Potter character are you" quiz, but lost your real essence in the process. You might be told you're gold, but acting like gold, it's a whole different thing. No course is going to be a miracle worker unless you clear out the clutter within. They'll just add to the "I feel like a failure" club. Yet, when you know and embrace your own material, magic happens. You become a happy brick, and that's priceless. Imagine knowing you're a clay brick and owning it, striving to be the best darn brick around. Maybe you're the chill, laid-back type who'd be thrilled owning a cozy bookstore in a small town. Or perhaps you scream entrepreneur, but with a whole chain of bookstores, online sales, 3D printing, going big, right? But sometimes these dreams aren't your cup of tea, and that's totally cool. It's not about lacking smarts or skills. It's realizing those paths just don't fit your jam. You won't achieve them, and guess what? They won't complete you either. We've been fed these ideals since we were knee-high, shaping how we see the world and often judging ourselves way too harshly. If you don't declutter the nonsense cluttering your vision, you'll just keep denying yourself, maybe feel like a flop, or worse, live a super bummed-out life. Remember, some of these ideal selves are just unreachable fantasies. Clean up your mental space and question those values. Some ideals might just not suit you or be within your reach. And hey, social status doesn't mean it's your thing. Loads of folks chase those unattainable ideals for decades only to wonder, what have I been doing my whole life? It's like chasing a dream that isn't yours. You need to find your groove in the world. If your crowd is pushing values that clash with who you are, it might be time for a new one. Otherwise, you'll be a fish out of water forever. Chasing after those impossible ideals, it's a shortcut to a lifetime of dissatisfaction. But once you embrace your uniqueness, that's where the real party starts. Let go of those imposed ideals and embrace who you are. That's when the good stuff happens and you start living a real, authentic life that's all you. So friends, that's a wrap on this book. Here's hoping it nudged you a bit closer to discovering your true self and becoming a bit wiser, seeing through all the noise out there. It's an ongoing thing, this self-cleaning mission, but let me tell you, it's worth it. And hey, remember this, stop polishing something that's just not meant to shine. Epilogue? Traumas. Hey there! Surprise, surprise, I'm not done just yet. Can't leave without talking about one of life's heavy hitters, traumas. You know, those things that throw us for a loop. I've jabbered about how they mess us up, but let me spill my go-to method for dealing with them. Let's imagine our minds this giant drum full of murky water. Everything's sloshing in there, genetics, life's happenings. It's all info and stimuli we've soaked up. But we can't just pop the lid and scoop out the gunk or dump it all at once. We've only got two solid ways to clean this drum water. One, shut off the taps of dirty water flowing in, basically the main theme of this book. Two, pour in clean water. Every drop of clean stuff displaces some dirt. Keep at it, and your water gets cleaner. We've been all about building awareness and doing the scrubbing, turning off those sources of mucky water in the drum. That's how we keep filtering out the junk that triggers our thought overload, leaving us stuck in the muck. Traumas? They're big-time contributors to that muck. You can't just pluck them out. You've got to add clean water till the dirt's out of there. So here's my method, the one that's been my lifesaver, and it saved me years of therapy. It's a bit of a grind and needs a sprinkle of faith to start, but stick with it, and you'll start noticing changes. You'll see the chaos in your life and in others' lives, too. This process, it'll help you become more you. But who's this authentic person, you ask? Someone free from inner junk, not shackled by ties to others or ruled by compulsions. Before connecting with anyone else, they value their own worth. Does it mean they don't care about others' thoughts? No, but they won't be shackled by it. They'll act freely, out of love, never fear. Wait, does that mean they just do whatever they please? No. They get that, say, going to a concert their partner wants matters, even if they're not into it. But it's not out of fear of losing the partner. It's out of genuine love. So are these authentic folks a bit distant? Actually, no. They're full of love, genuine connections, real empathy, not the fake kind. When you heal your own stuff and look at others, you'll realize they're stuck in their own mess too. You'll understand where they're coming from. Hurt people, just not aware of it yet. Tough stuff, yeah, but that's life. True empathy. Remember that ex-soldier I mentioned earlier, under the bed with a broom, still thinking they're in combat? Well, an authentic person gets that. They see others dealing with their own battle scars and have real empathy. You understand what they're facing. You get it. Instead of tossing out mean comments like, "You're nuts," or "What a weirdo," you genuinely feel for them. Authentic folks, they can tap into that true empathy. Sure, they might have disagreements, but it's not some impulsive brawl. It's about protecting their turf. A super authentic person might dip into their defense mode, but they've got a handle on it. No finger pointing or blaming others. They know deep down that they deserve love and happiness without breaking a sweat. And guess what? Their vibe? Natural. They're like a stream, effortless flow. Surgical but not rude. No addictions either. Because those addictions are another defense mechanism, a shield against fear. They're totally cool with their masculinity or femininity. Being authentic, it's about facing your fears head on. We've all got them, right? As the song goes, he who has one is afraid. Got a glimpse of any of those fears in yourself? If you're drawing a blank, you might be more stuck than you think. It's a journey, no doubt. If you've got one, you're afraid. You understand what these traumas do, right? They mess with your gut, your heart, your immune system. Science has shown this. They're like a domino effect on your emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and basically everything you do. But let's think about the price tag on holding on to these wounds. It's steep. You sacrifice your freedom and dial down your energy just to dodge those fears. We're okay dishing out loads to treat the symptoms, but next to nothing to tackle the root cause. Imagine you and your partner agree to stick to each other like glue, not seeing your friends. No fuss, no fights. But that's not a fix, it's a trap. It's fear taking over, choking your freedom, shrinking your life down to a tiny, crummy existence. And guess what? That's a one-way ticket to the land of constant sickness. Now, traumas, we've all got them. We can have several related to things and events. However, the ones that will always affect us are the ones related to people. Because guess what? We don't roll solo in this world. In fact, we draw people into our lives who stir up those wounds. It's like life's giving us a shot at healing. We relive those old wounds, sure, but we get a chance to patch them up, too. When we defend ourselves against trauma, we're just feeding that monster. We traumatize ourselves again and show our brain, hey, having that trauma was A-okay. But that's not the goal. We're after the opposite, showing our brain it doesn't rattle us, that we don't need to react or bolt. Seriously, read this paragraph again. It's the golden ticket to healing. All right, how do we crack this code? First up, spot a reaction or fear. Think not being able to say no, the green-eyed monster of jealousy or shouting at loved ones, those sorts of things. Next, figure out what lights the fuse on that fear bomb and watch how it explodes into a reaction. Remember what Yoda said, let your fear have a name before you can banish it. So the stages of healing? Easy peasy. You start by not even realizing you're in the dark. Then you notice that you're in the dark, followed by the big revelation that you've got the torch. Lastly, you might forget that you even once didn't have the torch at all. It's like a twisty-turny journey from clueless to the light bulb moment and back again. Know that you may not know. In Chapter 4, we dug deep into traumas, what they're about, how they sneak up on us. But guess what? There are red flags waving all over the place, signaling traumas in the house. Picture this. Blaming everyone and everything, throwing tantrums, avoiding the issue. We've got the full show, cursing, manipulation, playing the victim card, the whole deal. It's a real carnival of vengeful thoughts, passive-aggressive vibes, and a knack for changing everyone else but yourself. And if that wasn't enough, you're signing up for stuff you don't like, struggling to say no, and judging folks left and right. You know how to spot it? Observe yourself in action. Keep your eyes open for your reactions. And here's a pro tip. If you've got a buddy you trust, ask them about your reactions too. Honesty, folks, that's the name of the game here. First stop, ID the reaction. It's like you can't heal what you don't even realize is there. And newsflash, we've all got reactions. Finding them is the first step to breaking those traumas. Remember that bit about habits, healing traumas? Same story. Tiny, homeopathic doses, one trauma at a time. That's the ticket. Know that you know. So, you have understood your reaction, and now you're all set to handle it. Step 1, don't chicken out from the feeling, and definitely don't let it throw you into a reaction. Hold on to that emotion for a moment. Show your body that you're okay with it, that you're not going to die because of it. Let's talk anger. I've learned to face it head-on, to deal with it consciously, all zen and collected. I'm not judging it. I'm just watching it unfold like a curious observer. Over time, my system figures out that this anger doesn't have any reason behind it, that the fear behind it is a big, fat illusion. And guess what? Those fears start to fade away, and my reactions calm down. So when old traumas pop up, I don't go off the rails with explosive anger. Instead, I've got the liberty to react the way I see fit. My view of things becomes clearer and more real, minus the distortions caused by fear. But brace yourself. The start is a bit of a hot mess. Take yelling at your mom, for instance. First phase, full-blown yelling, then realizing it later. Next, you'll notice the yelling as it's happening, but struggle to hold it back. Progressing, you'll feel the yell coming, but with less oomph. And if you keep at it, you'll sometimes avoid the yelling, not always, but sometimes. Down the road, you'll consciously hold back the yelling, even if you're itching to let it out. You'll do what I said earlier, feel the emotion, no judgment, no need for the whole backstory, just calm down with it consciously. Keep at it, and there'll come a time when you won't even feel like yelling, and you won't even notice you've ditched that trauma. You've hit the don't know that you know stage, unconsciously competent, my friend. Imagine being petrified of roller coasters. At first, you avoid the line. Then you wait till it's close. Later, you might get in, but step off. Eventually, you take a ride, scared stiff, but after doing this 10, 20, or a gazillion times, the thrill's gone. If you shove down emotions, they come back stronger. It's like someone daring you not to think about bananas. You'll end up picturing bananas everywhere. I tell myself my emotions need a stage. When I give them that, they tell me what they're after. Acknowledge them, and they tend to vanish. If I'm clueless, the emotion goes straight to reaction town. If I'm aware but try to shush it away, it lingers, creating a negative buzz. But when I let the emotion do its thing without judgment, acknowledging it, it usually fizzles out quick. Let's get down to business. 1. You have noticed the trigger and can rein in the reaction. Instead of dodging the emotion, accept it as a regular part of being human. Understand it's okay to feel a whole mix of emotions. 2. Give it a stage. Let it play out. Imagine your emotions are center stage. Let them do their thing without running off. No judgments, no instant analysis, just feel and watch. Mindfulness practice will help you to succeed at this. 3. Hold on. Show your body it won't be the end of everything, and keep an eye on how the emotion rolls in your body and mind. Stay present, aware of what's going on inside. No good or bad labels, just let it be. Remember, it's all part of the emotion. 4. Acknowledge it. Tell yourself loud and clear, I'm feeling, insert emotion here, right now. Let it melt away. By accepting and giving space to the emotion, it tones down until it vanishes. Rinse and repeat always. Every person can tweak these steps their own way. The goal? Show your mind and body that you won't be roadkill in these situations. And man, relationships, they're like the VIP pass to your self-transformation journey. Relationships are key. Isn't it wild how relationships serve up both the trauma and the remedy? When you do that thing I talked about earlier, like reeling in your defense mechanisms, you'll notice that they're all tangled up in relationships, especially the romantic kind. And so, when you notice yourself going for that defense move, instead of running away or giving in to the pain, hang in there. Analyze it. Sit with it. Prove to your body that it's not the end of the world. That's your opportunity for healing. Feelings just want a spotlight. If you don't give in to them, they'll bug you forever. Let me tell you about my friend who was petrified of swimming. Slowly, step by step, I got her into it. Started with just dipping her toes in, always checking in, giving her that, I got your back. Next, in the shallow end, she let go of the ground, holding onto a float. Nervous as heck, but she faced it. We did this a bunch of times. After a while, she relaxed in the shallow water, and we moved a bit deeper, where she could still touch the bottom and take a breath. Slowly but surely, she was swimming without freaking out. Same deal with people stuff. Sometimes when your defense mechanism kicks in, you gotta act, but consciously feeling that pain. Like when saying no freaks you out, start with tiny no's, even if it's a flimsy excuse. Gradually, your body sees it's no big deal, and that rejection won't come crashing down on you. Homeopathic doses of pain facing, just like building habits. Now, meditation's a game changer for healing. It cranks up your awareness, what's happening in the here and now. It helps you understand yourself better and notice what you're scared of. It raises your pain and fear tolerance, keeps you grounded even when it's tough. Plus, it stretches out the space between what triggers your defense mode and your reaction. You'll spot that emotion smack in the middle of the road. At first, you'll see it fleetingly. You can't really stop it. Then you'll consciously dial down the reaction till it shrinks, until it goes away. Most therapists try flipping implicit memories into explicit ones, start treatment from there. But let me tell you, just making a memory explicit, that doesn't heal squat. What heals is facing your pain, hanging in there when it shows up, proving to your body it won't kill you. Weird, but true. Showing your mind that pain's a lie, that's your ticket out. Sadly, many therapists just help you learn to live with the pain, not end it. They're bunkering down under the bed with you, fighting a battle that shouldn't even be happening. Hey, I always say find yourself some top-notch therapists. The good ones, they're the real deal. But remember, the real cure? Facing your pain head on. Your most authentic self is not what you are now or what you were in the past. It's who you'll be when you've shed all that junk. Remember, your energy's finite, and this is just the beginning. Start simple, tidy up your surroundings, clear out that inner mess, and then face your pain. This move, It stops you from trying to polish a turd. The end. You have just finished listening to the audiobook of Stop Polishing a Turd, written by Daniel Linares, narrated by Dallin Decker. This audiobook production is copyright 2024 by Daniel Linares. All rights reserved worldwide.